with the scent of potpourri, the films we commit to memory. Crossing the felt ropes, watching from home on my TV, looking at all my eyes can see. They tell me I view obsessively.
Hello and welcome to The Obsessive Viewer. We're a weekly podcast that reviews one or two new release titles every episode with an occasional free-for-all segment at the end that we call Potpourri. You can find more of our work, including my written reviews, full episode show notes, and the complete backlog of our episodes at obsessiveviewer.com. You can also write into the show by emailing me at matt@obsessiveviewer.com. And if you'd like to support us and get access to hundreds of exclusive episodes, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer, where you can get access to content at any of our tier levels on a recurring monthly subscription basis, or you can buy individual collections a la carte in the Patreon shop section. This week on Patreon, I did an immediate reaction review for The First Omen, which was awesome. And I'm finally about to start The Haunting of Bly Manor for Flanagan Fridays. And since I'm back at it with Anthology, I'm going to be bringing back Sci-Fi Saturdays as well, so stay tuned for that. I'm still covering Foundation, and then after Foundation, I'm going to do episode reviews of Fallout. Once again, you can sign up at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer for all that and a bunch more content. I'm your host, Matt Hurt, and you can find me on social media, including Letterboxd, at Obsessive Viewer. And later in the show, I'll be joined by Mike for a secondary review of the much talked about horror film Late Night with the Devil, which is premiering this week on April 19th on Shudder, following a recent theatrical run. But before that, in our featured review this week, we'll be reviewing the new Alex Garland film from A24, Civil War, which opened in theaters on April 12th. And joining me this week for that featured review is first-time guest to the Obsessive Viewer podcast and host of his own eponymous podcast, The Brandon Peters Show. Welcome to the show, Mr. Brandon Peters. How's it going? And how's it going?
No, I'm good. I always think it's funny. Like, I was just thinking at this thought. I was like, what if you're like, well, from the Brandon Peters Show, we have Ted Davis. Like, you know, like, stuff like that. Like, it'd be pretty funny. But I'm very good. I'm very happy to be here. I appreciate you asking me to come on, and with a juicy movie like this to be dropping on the debut. Absolutely.
I'm very glad to have you on. We've known each other kind of in passing over the years. I do want to say, like, one of like my, and we'll talk about PopCon here in a bit, but one of my, like, I think the first time that I met you was at PopCon, like the second or third year, I think. And I just remember this vividly, that you and your co-host on Cult Cinema Cavalcade, at the time, you guys were there, and I was at the podcast stage about to watch my friends Pat and Tyler do their podcast. And then you guys were like, yeah, introduced yourself, and like we chatted and everything. You gave me a free shirt. I was like, oh, cool. Okay, awesome. So I don't know. I always just remember that. So
I remember that exactly, because nice. I tell that story a lot. Not so much. So I tell this other part of the story. Oh, shirt. Thank you for taking your shirt, because it was my first convention as a entity or whatever, and I was like, well, people, I came from knowing convention stuff in Los Angeles, and I'd done a couple. I'd been to a couple horror conventions here in Indianapolis before doing PopCon, and I'm like, you know what? I always liked, because I never got to go to San Diego Comic-Con when I lived in Los Angeles. All my employees there would go, but they bring me back swag, and I always loved they bring me back shirts. And I'm like, people like shirts at these. So the night before the Saturday I was coming, I ironed out like 100 shirts.
Oh, wow.
By hand. Nobody wanted them. Nobody wanted. Like, I gave away.
God.
Like, I still probably have some in my house. But yeah, it was crazy that nobody was taking them. I was like, you want a shirt? And like, I'm like, okay. And that's kind of why I went away from, like, and then I noticed seeing too, like, people like to make business cards and hand those out. And all I would see is just piles of them in the trash on the floor and stuff. I'm like, and so I started having the idea of doing visual things. I'm like, oh, I don't have you take a picture of this, so there will be at least a stopping point when they're going to delete stuff on their phone, where they have a second opportunity to go discover. So you're not going to really get a business card out of me. I'll give you my number or something, but yeah, not that.
Nice.
But yeah, so I remember that story, because it was the Sunday of PopCon. It was in the morning. I was going to do my first live podcast ever, and you were there in the auditorium. It was when it was in a what do they call it? Food court.
Yeah.
And you were really not. You're like, oh hey. I'm like, oh yeah. And you're like, I'm here to see this other show. I'm like, oh okay. Well, we're doing stuff. Here's us. And you realize, and that other podcast got off, and there's like nobody there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking to another podcast. I was like, so where's the person in charge of this? Well, mm-hmm. Like, oh no, you just kind of like you just. And I sorry, this is not what your friends really sound like, but this is what kind of it came off to me. It was like, oh no, you just kind of come up and you sit down, and you just hit record, and then like you hit stop, and then you go home.
Yep.
I was like, what the hell is it? Someone just left this computer, all this like software, like, and I was like,
yep.
I guess we'll do that. And then somehow it magically comes to me. All right, cool.
Yeah.
And that was the first, time where I was like, this is like a cool idea being like failed.
Yeah.
And so that was, I remember that day.
Nice.
I remember that. No, I remember meeting you there.
Yeah.
And that day. So
nice. Yeah. It like PopCon. We haven't done any, like we at the Obsessive Viewer haven't done anything with PopCon for several years now, but I have such fond memories, of PopCon. Like I know that at least one of my listeners, like I remember distinctly, like the first year of PopCon, like we did a whole, like we paid for like the electrical outlet at our booth, and we had our analog mixer and the microphones and stuff, and we did it like it was a big like, yeah, we're a real thing. We've been doing this for 6 months. We're a real thing now. But I remember like the next year, like someone came up, shout out to Andy, came up and he's like, yeah, I actually found you guys last year and I've been listening to you guys all year. And like occasionally he'll message me and be like, hey, I'm listening to this episode. And I'm like, oh my God, hey.
There you go, Andy.
Awesome.
Way to go.
Yeah. But we'll talk about PopCon in a bit. I do want to ask, so your show, the Brandon Peters Show.
Yes.
You started it a few years ago, or was it around 2020?
It was 20. Okay. It was at the end of September 2020.
There you go. Okay,
that's when it started. Yeah,
yeah, and so you have a bunch of different type of episodes, which I think is really fun. It's kind of the same thing that I do with my Patreon. I basically just like I'll have like immediate reactions, and then I'll have like episode reviews of this, book reviews and stuff. But you have like specific like episode classifications and stuff. Do you want to just kind of tell people what the Brandon Peters Show is before I just
is it's a journey. If you like film stuff and you like film focused studies, maybe you'll find something there. Nice. But it started out like, so for the first couple of years I kind of had this concept of film writer, or maybe I got some PR people through me, a couple directors and stuff early on too, so I was kind of appeasing them, but some creators and stuff. And it would be me and them talking about them, and then we would talk about a movie that was an odd favorite of theirs, because I always think it's interesting to see. I think you see a bit more of them when they're picking something that, because I really wanted something unique, because I didn't want to. Stupid me. I was like, I don't want to talk about the things everybody else is talking about. I want to be that one of 3 podcasts sitting there where someone's talking about this. So my first episode was Shanghai Nights, and I remember there was some build up to my show, and people were like, "Oh," when I revealed like, "Hey, first episode is gonna be Shanghai Nights with Scott Mendelson," and people were like, "Why Shanghai Night?" And it was literally an inside joke between me and Scott and Aaron Neworth, because there was a network called the HHWLOD network, and they were celebrating so many years of being on the air. And they want us. We did an episode of like our 20 favorite films of all time. Scott's top 10 had Shanghai Nights, and we're like, "What? You need to explain this." Not a bad movie, but we were like, "You need to explain this." And and so we were like, "Wow!" And so that's why I had Scott do that one on his first episode.
Nice.
But I had a lot of people. I had 2 people want to do Captain America: The Winter Soldier. I'm like, I don't think you know what I mean when I say unique favorite.
Right.
And so that's where we spun around with that. But I noticed in that 2 years, and it got to a point where there was a project that when I started it with Scott, I wanted to do, was called the Summer of '82 at 40, and it was this pop culture whirlwind, because I was turning 40, and the summer of '82 at the movies was turning 40, and I didn't want to just do like the movies that came out that year, which I did, but I wanted it to be a weekend by weekend look at the movies that came out. So every release that came out that weekend. And then I was like, but what was it like for the person going to the theater that week, seeing those movies too? So I surrounded the episode has shorter film conversations, but it's also got us talking about some news items I pull from that happened during that week. Those movies came out. We talk about what the top 10 songs on the radio were during that time, and like the top 10 television shows. We go through the Nielsen ratings, and if we just know something about those shows and what specific thing might have happened, which we don't like, this isn't like a 9-hour episode talking about everything. And then we talk about the box office, because that's Scott's nuts and bolts. And we go through from May to August, and we cover the summer. And then on the Friday episodes from that top 10, because music videos has always been a thing with my show, where I'll have like a Monday episode worth a guest, and then Friday that guest will pop back for a music video. But I've thrown that portion of my early days to the Summer of series, where I pick music videos from those top 10 lists from the summer, and I bring a random carousel of guests to talk those music videos and their nostalgia of like, oh, I remember this and that. And that became such a big deal that people asked us to do more. And so we went on last year to do Summer of '93 at 30, and brought in Aaron Newworth from We Live Entertainment and Out Now with Aaron and Abe. So he joined in. So we did Summer '93, and this upcoming in a couple weeks, we're going to be dropping the Summer of 2004 at 20.
Nice.
So it will be back for that, because people keep asking for more.
The Summer of 2004. Like nice. Small anecdote that I worked in a movie theater that summer for like 2 months.
There you go.
Yeah, like my first weekend working in the movie theater, I was like 17, 16. I can't remember how old I was. It was Spider-Man 2 weekend, opening weekend. And, and they threw me at the like behind, like the auxiliary concession stand by myself. And I'm like, I literally, like, I don't know what I'm doing, and I don't know how to talk to humans.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
I, at least when I was a kid, I got fired from a restaurant I was working at. I didn't get fired. It was not smart to go back.
Sure.
But I didn't want to work with my father doing construction this summer. So I read there was a Burger King opening, and they hired me. And then I was immediately put on like fries.
Oh,
like,
God.
It was just, and I'm like, what in the hell am I doing? Hit that button when it beeps, pull them out. Like, it was like, oh, okay. So, and I worked there for a month, but,
wow.
But yeah, but I will say Burger King was one of the cleanest places I've ever worked.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
Oddly enough, but yeah. So I won't dog them too much. I did not like working there, but it was a clean place.
Nice. Very nice. So other things on the Brendan Peters show. I was telling you before, I was listening to a bunch of episodes today. You also do like your the 4K Blu-ray HD thing. Like you had a wish list episode that I listened to today.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That was a carryover. So for 10 years, I wrote for a website called whysoblu.com where I reviewed 4Ks and Blu-rays, and I left there in December, and I decided to carry over and do reviews on my YouTube channel. And one of my favorite things to do every year at Why So Blue was my wish list of titles that aren't out on Blu-ray or now 4K. That I'm like, oh, I'd love to have a good copy of that. Like, because I know there's people out there thinking like, why isn't this there? Why isn't this there? And I try to find out, and like the criteria for that would be like, it can't be, if there's one in Thailand, it's out, and you have a region-free player.
Yep,
you can buy it. It's out. So it's kind of like that. And I want to do it. And funny enough, that episode was kind of like, well, I can do this in some time and get an episode out. So,
nice.
But that's why I went on the podcast side too. But a lot of my Blu-ray stuff is on my YouTube channel. So if you subscribe to my YouTube channel, you get more than just the episodes that I drop from my podcast. Which, I'll put Blu-ray reviews up there here and there. I used to do promo videos for my podcast, but may have time and effort since the I was a dumb and I started my podcast during a pandemic where we're all at home all the time, and I had all the time in the world and the energy, and making a podcast that drops like 5 days a week and doing videos on a weekend. Not gonna, when everything goes back to normal and you have kids doing stuff and going back to work every day and all that stuff, is like, nope, I just have to slow down, and it's okay. It's okay. Like I was recently talking on another podcast where I said one of the biggest, they were like, what have you learned from doing, all this time? And I said, from this show, I've learned, and I it's okay to take a break. It's okay. Like right now, I haven't done an episode in a few weeks, and I've thought about them. I've had to tell myself, no, just your live shows at PopCon will suffice for a week, and then summer of 2020 starts, and you are off for the summer, basically, because those are all pre-recorded. So nice. With that series I'm talking about, we start recording that in like end of December, beginning of January. So then I'm doing 2 episodes a week for my show, kind of, while doing massive research for one, and trying to get the others out. So it's a lot of intensive time and stuff. So I just am like, we'll get there, that's what I have to be. And I'm trying to preach to people that, like, it's okay to stop. You want to be in this because you enjoy it and because it's fun.
Yes.
And yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like I was telling you before we recorded, like I've been going weekly with Obsessive Viewer, and like that has not become a chore for me. It's become more of a challenge, but also more of a like, okay, I want to be have a little bit more accountability for myself to watch as many movies as I can. Cause like I'm a part of the Indiana Film Journalists Association. We vote on awards and all of that. And I want to not have to cram as much at the end of the year.
No, I hear you. I get those too. Like the screener race at the end of the year
it's insane.
And then you're like, oh, I'm hearing this one. I'm going to push this one out to later. I'm going to push this one out to later. And yeah, I feel you there.
Yeah. Yep. And when you're on a deadline with that, and then like it's very good for my Patreon, because like that's when I'm like, oh, I'll do a full length episode of 4 movie reviews and post it on Patreon, and then promote it and everything. But that gives me a little bit of accountability. But I just love doing this, and I'm like, I don't want to be in a funk where it's like a few months have gone by, or I don't know. Obsessive Viewer is like my baby. Like I've had this for almost 11 years now, and like I don't think we've gone more than, I think there's maybe 1 or 2 times where we've gone like more than a month without having an episode, which I'm very proud of that. But now I'm just like, I just want to, just keep doing it until until I just don't feel like doing it.
No, you're expressing yourself in a way that makes you very happy. Like, so yeah, whether 0 people or a million are listening, you're getting it out there. I mean, hitting the record button's an important step. And,
absolutely. But speaking of hitting the record button, April 26th to the 28th. People are going to be recording things at the Indiana Convention Center for PopCon Indy.
Yes.
That's a smooth transition. So
I'm the king of not smooth transitions, so I love it.
Nice. So PopCon Indy, you are officially part of the PopCon crew. Can you tell me about like what all is in store for PopCon Indy 2024? And also, before you do that, I do want to direct all of the listeners to check out the Brandon Peters show, where you had Carl on to talk all about PopCon Indy. So that was really good.
Yep, there have been more guests announced since that episode.
Nice.
We were debating whether we'd be able to announce Emily Bett Rickards from Arrow on that episode, but he decided ink's not there yet. So
smart. Yeah.
But it was.
Nice.
So go to that episode. There's also an episode of KJ Today, which I guested on with Carl, and we talked about PopCon.
Nice.
So there's even more there. But yeah, the live podcast stage at PopCon has been a staple there, but I have tried my best to make it a show, a more than just like there. I want it to be a presence, and I've been working very hard the past many years to try to make it something. And I feel like it's there. It's getting there. There's still more I want to do with it, but it's kind of launched. This is the first year I've had a wait list. Like I literally have had to email people and tell them, yeah, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
And I feel bad because it's a great opportunity for people that don't get the opportunity to like do their show for a live people. I offer, like if you're listeners, you've thought about it before, I give you a free pass for the day you are recording. So you can come to PopCon for free. It's no obligation. So if that's not your cup of tea, but you have a podcast and you want to record a live episode, maybe see what that's about, is there. But like I have a full roster Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I do a show once a day, each day. And my shows are audience interactive. You can be on a podcast, you can win prizes, you can have a lot of fun. I have the Normies are doing their podcast, Talking Normies, on one day. I have a podcast coming up from Kentucky. I have some coming from Illinois. Some movie podcasts. I've got the Championship Darts people are doing a show on the podcast stage to help people learn about that. And it's weird because there's been some PopCon people like darts. And I'm like, hey man, they're on the fringes of that sporting world, so let them in. Like we can't be hating. Hey, I told Carl, I said, the opportunity is there. We could be the place that you could meet Caitlin Clark for the first time in Indy.
Yeah.
If you want people, I'm like, the WNBA is on the fringes of the cool, for now, like, but I was laughed out of the door because she's probably really expensive.
Oh, yeah.
So no, the podcast stage, like I host it. I present you with a programming slate. I try to make the slate varied. So I try to like not, if you're a movie podcast, I don't want you like sandwiched between two other movie podcasts. I don't want you following one. I try to vary up the schedule through the day. I try to give people the opportunity. I'm also there to like advice if you want it. If you've never done a live show and stuff, I've been doing it for years. I still don't think I'm perfect at it, but I can give you pointers, and I'll watch your podcast if I'm able to, and try like afterwards be like, try to give pointers, like advice, because I've been on many roles of advisory with podcasts. I was a co-director of Podcast Indy for many years. Oh yeah, and now I'm currently an ambassador for Indy or IN Podcasting. Yep, which just launched this year, which is a bunch of podcasters trying to help podcasters. And I take that role serious.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You might have frozen again. There we go. Okay.
Apologies. But
You're good.
I feel honored that people think of me of things like that, but I want the podcast stage to make you feel like a rock star. I want you to feel like you have, because you see all these other people, and the one thing about PopCon is great is they recognize like podcasting, YouTubing, and things like that as just as big a presence as like a celebrity and stuff, and taking note of that.
That's what always impressed me about PopCon. Like when we did the live podcast stage stuff, like that was like the first PopCon we did was, like I said, like that would have been, I can't remember what time of year it was, but it was like in the infancy of the Obsessive Viewer. It was like a year after we started. And like we did the PopCon stage, and like at the time, like the first, like the 3 times I think we went 3 times. Each year it was like, okay, well, like we can do like a live thing where it's just us chatting about movies or whatever, or we can kind of like reach out to someone at PopCon and see if they want to be a guest and everything and do that. So like we would scramble and like find a guest. And like the first year we had Chick McGee from the Bob and Tom Show.
Oh, okay,
and that was really great because we were nervous as hell. And then like he's a professional radio personality. So I'm like, yeah, carry it, please carry it. Spill all of the tea about Jeremy Piven and do that, which he did.
It was
really
some
good.
Tea about Jeremy Piven. Actually, if you want more, I got some.
Not a surprise at all, honestly. But yeah, PopCon is a great entity, and it kind of sucks I haven't been there in a while. Like listening to your episode with Carl, I was like, oh my god, like all of the things that are like in PopCon now. It's like it would, maybe next year I'll like get a pass or something and go, or maybe try to be in the live stage or something.
Yeah, come to live stage. You got a spot. There will be one in Louisville too if you want to take a trek.
Yes.
So, I like I said, the stage is nothing like you probably remember, because I took that thing and I was like, okay, people, 1, need a clear idea what's going on. 2, they want to know as early as possible when they're going to go, if they got accepted, when they're going to go on. And two, there needs to be like a personality there. There needs to be someone to talk to, someone to rep, like, because that was one of my things early on. It's just like, I can't hit record, I guess.
Yeah.
But so yeah. Yep. So I wanted to do that. And I feel like we have like a backdrop now. We have a banner now. It looks like something's going on. It's in the vendor hall and not like, I know it's free if you have it out in but there's so many distractions and so many weird things that go on in and there's the one year there was dead spots everywhere. Like people would be sitting right in front of you and not be able to hear. So
geez. Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, that's great. Well, congratulations on all the work you put into that and your affiliation with PopCon. Once again, when is PopCon Indy?
It is August 26th through 28th at the Indiana Convention Center downtown.
Nice.
Tickets are on sale now. They always go up closer to the event, so get them. We have Elijah Wood and Andy Serkis as the headliners, as well as a lot of the Arrow cast. Which, sorry, no Stephen Amell. It started with him, but he got cast in Suits LA.
Dang.
But everybody else there got Walking Dead people, Breaking Bad people, Power Rangers, Johnny Young Bosch, Dante Bosco. It's the most loaded PopCon lineup of all time.
It's amazing.
And it's got to be something for you. Got to be something that you like there.
Oh yeah. Also Chandler Riggs, Dean Norris is going to be there. Good stuff. So yeah, April 26th to 28th. Awesome. Yeah, if you're in Indiana or in the adjacent area, check it out. So do you want to go into our featured review? No, I feel like we've been chatting forever.
No.
Yeah,
I like the chat at the beginning. We have, off air, we have a chat before. It's always a good warm up to get your cadence together. I always am a fan of talking about, even if it's a little bit long. I enjoy the talk. We get in a mode and we get on each other's wavelength.
Exactly.
Such a good tactic. But yeah, we can
totally agree.
We can talk a war that was civil.
A war that was civil. Yes. So, as you can infer from that, our featured review tonight is going to be for Civil War. Of course, we're going to do a non-spoiler review, and then we'll do a spoiler review. We'll bring us into the spoiler review with a clip from the trailer. Check the show notes for timestamps if you want to navigate around or just skip to the secondary review with Mike. So that those show notes are also at obsessiveviewer.com/OV424. And to bring us into the review, to the non-spoiler review, the plot summary of Civil War is a journey across a dystopian future America following a team of military-embedded journalists as they race against time to reach D.C. before rebel factions descend upon the White House. The movie was written and directed by Alex Garland, and the cast includes Nick Offerman, Kirsten Dunst, Wagner, Mora, Kaylee Spaney, and Stephen McKinley Henderson. So, Brandon, when it comes to Alex Garland, before we get into our thoughts about Civil War, what's your relationship with Alex Garland as a filmmaker, and how were you anticipating Civil War?
All right. Well, he's a guy that I've genuinely liked his films. Annihilation is one of my favorite post-2000s films.
Oh, nice.
Really like that one because I just soak up something different. It's a movie, you watch it, you put it away for a bit, you come back, and you're like, I see something totally different in this movie.
Yes.
Ex Machina is a fun movie. I thought it was quite good, fun movie. Men is where I talk about why I am such a director hound more than I am fandom things with people. You know how people are like, so I always think it's more interesting. I'll put it this way, a bad John Carpenter film is more fascinating and interesting to me than some generic guy's okay film, that's always, and I think Men fell into that category for me. While it didn't quite work as well, it was a very interesting film to look at. It's one of those small scale movies that look bigger than a lot of our large scale movies, which I appreciate. The Green Knight, man, that thing was huge.
Oh my God,
on the big screen. It was so great. I'm like, what? Why don't some of the comic book movies feel like this?
Right. So, oh my God, yeah.
And Men definitely felt that way. And so he has his name on it. I'm interested in the project. And I saw the trailer for it and I was like, oh, well, we are here in history where someone's gonna make the cautionary tale of what's happening right now. So I was like, it intrigued me. And they have that trailer moment with Jesse Plemons that's in the film that comes up. That I'm like, okay, that's a good little hook. So I was like, all right, this is interesting. It didn't look like anything he'd done before,
right?
So I was there. Now this is it from him. So he announced he's retiring. So I was like, all right. So that was kind of my preconceived thing going in.
Nice. That's really interesting. Also, just as a brief aside, I saw this really funny meme of Jesse Plemons that is an amalgam of his lines from Game Night and Killers of the Flower Moon and Civil War, where it just said like it was like all mixed together, and it's like him like faded in and out, like all three versions of him. And it's like, I've come here to see what kind of American is profitable to Frito-Lay or something. Like just an amalgam of all that. I got a big kick out of that. But but that's really interesting that Annihilation works so well for you. That's a movie that I like. My relationship with Alex Garland it goes back to 28 Days Later. 28 Days Later in Sunshine.
I was speaking his directorial.
Oh yeah.
So
in terms of his writing effort and his collaborations with Danny Boyle, namely 28 Days Later in Sunshine. The Beach I haven't really watched. I watched it once I think, but I never really returned to it. But 28 Days Later and Sunshine are like two of my like all timers, like favorite movies. Yeah. Love them. And then Ex Machina is up there for me too. And then Annihilation and Men. Both are kind of like, I kind of have like different experiences with them in that on one hand, Annihilation, I feel like was pretty like dense to where like it's the kind of movie you need to return to feed more off of. Whereas Men is like, there's some weird things in that. There's some interesting things in that, but I don't know if I've ever had the pull to really revisit it or go back to it, which
I've seen it twice. I saw it in the theater and I reviewed the Blu-ray.
Nice.
That's
nice.
So yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. So it's kind of a mixed bag, but Civil War I was very excited about just because like the hype surrounding it, and it being like the most expensive A24 movie or what have you. Did you ever see his show Devs, by the way?
No, I didn't see Devs.
It's really good, man. It's so good. It's on FX on Hulu. It's like an 8-episode sci-fi miniseries about like a tortured guy who creates like not AI. It's not Ex Machina, but it's like he creates this whole like thing. There's a mystery. It's really good. It's really good.
Okay.
I highly recommend it.
So, I have to ask you, Annihilation. So, were you familiar? Have you watched a lot of Andrei Tarkovsky films?
Only Solaris.
Okay, so if you watch Stalker, which is a very long movie, you might kind of get where that one's sort of coming from. There's a lot of similarities to it, and it's genuine. If you see like Mirror as well, like it's definitely. He very much was watching a lot of that when he was thinking of Annihilation. So that, and I love Tarkovsky, and his films just look amazing. So that's kind of a lot of where my passion, like really attaching right away to Annihilation, comes from. Possibly. Nice. So I was wondering, I wonder if you've seen Tarkovsky stuff. So that would be maybe where our disconnect comes from in our views on the film.
Nice.
Where we came from coming to it. So maybe that's where. That
I definitely need to brush up on him. I really like Solaris. I've seen it a couple of times, and like it's great. It's incredible.
Spooky as hell. It's one of the most haunting movies I think I've ever seen.
It's so surreal and weird. Yeah. Yep. It's
got one of the best like what happened to the space station that no one's on right now movies ever, and the whole white like I love that. I used to pop. Oddly enough, that was like a birthday movie for me for many years. Where I was like, I'm gonna set time aside to watch this movie on my birthday. Granted,
nice.
I love the opening. I love the rain. I love him out in the grass and stuff like that. But watching the video and the car drive, I'm like, I want to get to space.
Yes,
I will say that. And I'm a patient movie watcher, but like, I know where my goods are coming, and that's I could spend the whole time in that space station. But yeah,
totally. Like I remember the last time I saw it was a couple of years ago or a few years ago, we were doing a whole series of episodes on picking movies from the Ebert's Great Movies List series. Yeah, we're not really doing that anymore since I'm doing the weekly thing. But one of the ones was Solaris, and like I remember, like I haven't gone back and listened to that episode, but I feel like I was trying to make sense of the whole car driving sequence. But I don't know if I did. So like it might be like a cringy, like, I think that this is what he was saying about this, when it's like, no, he's in a car, man. It's nothing. Like, yeah. I don't know. But anyway, yeah. So Alex Garland's cool dude. Excited. I was excited about Civil War. Brandon, in non-spoiler terms, how did you feel about the war that was civil, as you call it?
Yes. The Civil War. So, yes. I like this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was good, not great. Like I think it like had the ability to be great if it wanted to be more profound with some of the things it was saying. And it was fascinating. Like I think the finale is a excellent put together piece of editing and trajectory and choreography, laying it out and stuff. Yeah. I really thought that was good. There's some other sequences in there too. I felt like a lot of this movie, there's a lot of things in this movie that were a little bit too on the nose telegraphed throughout. And so I was like that. And there's some conceits you got to make, but there, I like the focusing on the journalistic approach to the movie. Is not the first time it's ever been done. Of course,
sure.
Like Salvador and like Full Metal Jacket's even more put a journalistic approach too. Mm-hmm. But like a lot of them. But I like the real focus on that a bit, because it's not all war all the time, and you get to see like the open roads and the empty countryside quite a bit, and allow us to see our characters mesh, develop them a little bit. So yeah, that all works for me. Kirsten Dunst, more leads for her, please, because she's been doing some excellent work here with this. The Power of the Dog and like Fargo, and like I'm really liking this part of her career. Not that she was ever bad before. I think she was unfairly treated a bit in the 2000s with tabloids and stuff, when it's like, dude, just let her be a young girl, man.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah.
But she's quite good here. There's something else in my brain real quick here, but yeah, there was a bit for me, there was a little bit of confusion on sometimes when they would gather with people which part of the secession pieces they were from.
That was a little confusing to me too, and I kind of feel like maybe that's the intention.
It wants to be apolitical, but it says political things.
Yes.
And I don't know if that's meant to cause confusion, and it's unclear, but like, yeah, there's some weird things. But I think the ultimate goal of this, that I think it does better than anything we've seen before, including the news, is it makes a digestible way and relatable way for us over here in like the United States or North America to kind of relate and feel for what a journalist might be going through overseas in a wartime effort. Like that may be what I think is going on here, where you can like, because you're seeing environment, you're in a time period that is present, and you have characters and you have a lot of like communications that make a little bit of sense to you and can be seen, and you're like, oh. And I was thinking this whole time, I'm like, okay, I kind of get what they're trying to do. Maybe they're trying to show like, this is what happens in those countries.
Yeah.
But that's what it's like now. And this is what these people really go through, that you sit and throw garbage at and call, fake media and like all this, and the journalists are bad and all this. And this is what they're going through. And they come home to your BS a lot of the time. So I wonder if that's maybe part of the goal with the overall thematics of the movie. But yeah, it's a lot here. I could yammer, but
no, please do. Yeah. Like that's something I honed in on pretty quickly too was that idea of like there's been a lot of criticism of it, or a lot of, I wouldn't say backlash, but a lot of like critiques of this movie saying like, well, like how, like, why is Texas and California teaming up? Like what's that? Like, this is clearly made by a British guy who knows nothing about the political stuff here. It's like, yeah, I feel like that's intentional. Like that's the point. Like it's creating this completely fictitious political opposition in the United States for the services of this movie, specifically to showcase that this is what it looks like. Like this is like us, like you said, recognizing the things that are seen overseas and away from here, but seeing it here in the US is jarring. And to do that in such a way that is not about like MAGA or like Antifa or any whatever words you want to throw out there, to do that where it's like it's intentionally vague, creates this much more immersive, for me, experience of like, yeah, this is nuts, this is crazy. And then something else that really kind of stood out to me on that front was that I get the sense that like there are so many different like bits and pieces here that feel like it feels like a certain sect of the population who maybe are not the best at media literacy will see it and be like, oh my God, no, this is they're attacking my guy. They're attacking the guy who can do no wrong, who's on trial. But like they're doing like this is an attack on him, and it's like no. This is just like showing what like a fascist regime would look like in the US. It's maybe not. It's maybe a bigger reflection of like your position that it looks like your position. Like that's the best way I can say it without going on a soapbox. But yeah.
The thing is, too, like you mentioned, like the MAGA and Antifa thing, but like the sad thing about stuff like MAGA and whatnot, but like the catchphrases, the idea, those aren't new. Those are been around for a long time. Like if you go back through history, and you even look at films and things and see like leaders and stuff, they're saying the same phrases. They're shouting the same things. So it's kind of a universal. Granted, it's a hot button topic now, but it's sadly been around for ages. When things happen and stuff comes around like this, usually when there's a significant movement of progress and change, it's the last ditch effort of a group to be like, oh my world. But so I think it is definitely. Confusion's the name of the game here. And the Texas California thing, the things where, why would they, like, one, it could be a gag, it could be a joke, like, well, who would have thought them? Right. But also, not everybody in Texas is this bleeding red Republican, and maybe they wouldn't. You can push them to a degree where they've had pretty close governor election and like elections within their state. Just like I hate it when they're like, well, boycott this state. I'm like, you can't boycott the people of the state. The people that live in a state are not all representative of their politician that got elected. That is not the case, and you can't do that. And that's the case with Texas in this. That's not it can't be the case. And the notable thing about Texas, they're like two of our biggest landmass states. Yep. So that's a notable thing. I'm just like, not everybody in a red state believes in all the values there. Red, they have to live their lives too. Moving's not easy. Right. You don't pick up and just go. Yep. And change never happens in a place when you do that. Like that's not how stuff goes. You have to fight. You have to weather the storm. You have to share. You have to promote your values in ways beyond the ballot box that hopefully influences and keeps them around, going around. And I'm not trying to say like Republicans all bad, but some people stand for all bad, and politicians, they're voting for politicians with awful values and not good things in mind that they don't realize they're voting for a lot of the time.
Yes, exactly. Well said. That is the best like diplomatic way to say it too without going off on a tangent. So I appreciate that. But yeah, and that's a great example too. It's like, yeah, I mean, not everyone in a red state is like red state person or anything. Like I'm not presuming what your political leanings are, although I can kind of figure out from context, but like we're both in Indiana. Like, yeah. Like this is, I've often heard Indiana referred to as the southernmost northern state. So, or the northernmost southern
of the Midwest.
The northernmost southern state. But yeah. So
well,
anyway.
we went through RFRA back in the day, and I really learned a lot about people saying, I was so mad about that back in the day. And then we have like George Takei on television saying, we will boycott you. It will hurt the economy. Many of you will lose jobs, but we have to. I'm like, that's not cool, man. Like, no. I thought we share, and I see them. They did it to North Carolina when they had that stupid bathroom law thing happen. We're boycotting it. I'm like, stop it, because you're hurting the people.
Yes.
You're hurting people you care about too.
Yes.
You're trying to do harm to that just to prove a point. Like, no, you need to be more like Georgia and try to just, fix things from within and support them fixing things within, not just boycott. Go visit that state and start helping. Like, that's, if there's a problem, don't boycott.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot of, there's a lot of things that like promote togetherness. Don't promote, because that's just,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's frustrating. The whole world's frustrating. But at least we're not to a point of civil war yet.
No. And this movie put, I think a lot of things when this trailer came out, there's a lot of like, oh my God, there's people that said, oh, this, I want to see this. There are people like, that's interesting. And then they're like, oh my God. It's like, well, no, somebody was going to make this.
Yeah.
Somebody at this time. I'm kind of glad I was glad it was a filmmaker like Garland taking it. But then this was, I feel like of his movies, the ones he's directed, I feel like this is like his most accessible one yet.
I would say so. Yeah.
And I was wondering, like, was I confused about some things because it was easy and I'm not used to things being easy on his movies? But I feel like this was his most like, and considering like it is one of the biggest A24 openings ever.
Oh yeah.
And stuff like, I'm like, yeah, like his other movies have all been really low grossing, and this one hit like a nice pile of money for an opening weekend. I'm like, yeah, I feel like this is his accessible
first time they've had a top of the domestic box office. Which is incredible. That's incredible. But yeah, like it is his most accessible, and I think it's because it's intentionally vague. Like there are moments here and there where it's like they reference like, oh yeah, the president is like in his third term, and like just I so love the way that he is able to just do the exposition dump through just natural dialogue, and it's like they're having a conversation in the van or in the truck on their way to DC, and he's like, I like, these are the questions I'm gonna ask, or like, should I ask this or this? And like as he's saying this, it's like, oh, this is the backstory, like this is what led to this, and like it's an easy screenwriting trick, but it's like it's done so like naturally that I didn't see it as a screenwriting trick. I was like, oh, this is the information I need, and this is being given to me in like on a silver platter that's very nicely done and everything, and not like being force fed to me.
We got an interesting dynamic of a partnership between a reporter and a journalist. You've got the new girl who's our Spanish character that we just go in, and then you got the old guard that was their mentor.
Yep.
So you've got a whole history with conversation that they can talk about as they go on this little journey.
Yes. Together. And I love that the focus is on the journalism aspect, the photojournalism, like the just journalistic endeavor that they're doing, and the way that it is kind of this neutral sort of like them reporting on things with a neutral eye, and having to come across like the Jesse Plemons of the world and have like bad experiences along the way. It is a little bit it's a little bit vague or a little bit confusing on like whose side is which side is the like good guys or which side is the bad guys. Right. And like it was not until like kind of advanced in the movie, it's like, oh yeah, okay, this is actually this is like, okay, I'm getting a sense of what the two sides are, because I was more absorbed in like the experience of everyone doing their thing. It wasn't until late in the movie where I was like making like conscious thoughts about each of the two factions. I was just like kind of along for the ride. Maybe that's a fault of me as a viewer, but yeah.
Typically, I mean, I'm watching this, and I don't think this is a spoiler. Pretty sure it's not. Visual identifiers. So when we first we stop with them as a group is attacking another group holed up in a building, and the group that we're with following has like Hawaiian shirts on and just regular clothes fighting. And they're fighting a bunch of people in military outfits. So I'm like, oh, these are the rebels, and these are the one. But later on, like everybody's in military outfits. And I'm like, wait, did we go to the other side? But I don't think we did. But I don't think we did. And it's just, I'm like, maybe as you approach DC, everybody becomes more militarized. Yeah. And that's the idea. But I was like, wait, but they could have been now. But there's like 5 different secessions of the country, right? There's like, there's the Florida coalition or whatever. There's the Western forces, there's the loyalists, and then there's up like Oregon, like we're just starting our own thing. Thanks,
that's
bye.
Right. Yeah. Jesus.
So, I don't know if they ran into all 5 at some point during this. Yeah. But I just visual identifiers. I get kind of washed away because I'm normally like, okay, if the people got regular clothes on, they're not military. They're this faction. They're the Western forces. I was guessing. Yeah. But
if they have a red lightsaber, they're bad. If they have a blue lightsaber.
Right, yeah. That's how, that easy kind of thing. Like the Jackie Chan movies, he wears the white shoes and his bad guys wear the black shoes.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, absolutely. And, but I think that's also just like the vagueness of that is definitely intentional. Like the sniper scene, they're like, there's that whole dialogue, which we'll talk about in spoilers, where they're just like, well, it's just, we're doing this. Like, this is just what we're doing. This is the way that it is. There's no rhyme or reason. There's no like why to it. We're just like, this guy has a gun. We have a gun. We're going to take him out if he doesn't take us out or whatever. It's really, and that makes for such a bleak outlook on things, which I think is also really good in terms of social commentary and just like really hammering home that, like what we were talking about, where it's that surreal aspect of seeing like our homeland, our country just devastated and rocked by war. Like war-torn America is a very tough pill to swallow while watching it, and having it not bogged down by having like a big narrative push as to why. It really makes it more accessible for us to kind of just live in this. And that's something that's also expressed with Lee, Kirsten Dunst's character, where like she mentions at one point, like, I think she says something like, I've covered wars all over the place, but I just never wanted to cover it here. And now I am. And like her performance is incredible too, just because she's just so worn down by everything.
No, it's quite good. Like it's very the war. It's interesting. Like I know people have said, but like in recent history, like this is a good, like just looking at her, like you get like you feel the wear and tear.
Yes,
from the get go. Like she's not like hot shot. She's just, this is just who I am now.
Right.
Like there's no excitement to it for her.
Exactly.
It's just like I wouldn't be anything if I didn't have this. Like,
Yep.
That's it. Like,
and that's countered in such an interesting way with Jesse's character, Kaylee Spaney, her being like, oh yeah, Lee's one of her heroes. Like she's one of her photojournalistic heroes and everything. And it's just like they kind of have like a mentor-mentee relationship, but it's still like kept so far at a distance because Lee is just so kind of just wrecked by everything that's happened in her experience. I really like that kind of like keeping her at arm's length, but still kind of being drawn into it. That kind of classic sort of mentor-mentee template of storytelling. I thought it was done well.
It's different than what we see a lot of the time, and it's not overly spiteful, but it's very she's keeping it cautious, and I think there's part of her that sees like she's going to be better than even I am. Like there's sort of a thing like that. There's a sort of thing where also they kind of she struggles with some of the horrors of it, so we get to see her grow into becoming numb to everything. Yep.
Should we go ahead and go into spoilers? Because there's a few things I'm gonna... Yeah.
Is that one of your brilliant segues there?
Yes. Should we go into spoilers?
We can go into spoilers. Sweet. If you feel we had enough non-spoilers.
I think so. Anything in non-spoilers you want to bring up before we run over to the spoiler section and kind of dig more deeper into it.
This movie has been rated R. There you go.
Yes. And as a huge fan of Letterboxd that you are, what did you rate it on Letterboxd?
I gave it 4 out of 5.
Nice.
I think there's enough here. Like I said, good, not great. I was wanting a little more, I don't know, punch to some of the things, but overall, it surface level, it's fascinating, good, unique entertainment. So
nice, well said.
At a higher degree, yeah.
Yep. So my kind of knee-jerk rating of it was 4.5 out of 5 stars.
So we're right around the same.
Yeah.
Ideally, yeah.
And like, it's one of those things where I'm curious to see how that changes, if it does change upon repeat viewings. Because like, I'm kind of thinking about maybe going to see it again in the theater, because it's such an interesting and somewhat unexpected. I guess I was expecting a lot of it, but it was the vagueness of it, the just kind of the surreal aspect of it was something that I was just really taken with. So I don't know if it'll increase or decrease on repeat viewings, but I rated it 4.5 out of 5 stars. And yeah, let's go ahead and go into spoilers for Civil War. To bring us into that, I'm going to play a clip from the trailer. If you don't want to be spoiled, skip ahead to the secondary review. Check the show notes for timestamps. Once again, those show notes are at obsessiveviewer.com/OV424. And we're going to go into spoilers for Civil War after this clip from the trailer for the movie.
19 states have seceded.
The United States Army ramps up activity.
The White House issued warnings to the Western forces as well as the Florida Alliance.
The three-term president assures the uprising will be dealt with swiftly.
Let me know if you want to try anything on.
Are you guys aware there's like a pretty huge civil war going on all across America?
We just try to stay out. With what we see on the news, seems like it's for the best.
Citizens of America, the so-called Western forces.
So, spoilers on for Civil War. The first thing I kind of want to bring up is the sound design and just how much it is assaulting. Like it is so intense. Like there were moments where, like, it's a war film through the perspective of journalists covering it, but like it is like he goes all out with the war imagery, the sound design, the visceral violence of it all. I was really just absorbed in that. How'd you feel about that aspect of it?
Yeah, it was great. I have to comment that the quiet is unsettling in the movie.
Yes.
Yeah. Anytime just out in the woods or in the little like the quiet's quite unsettling, and they do get you at one point with that. So
yes. Yeah. And
which is spoiler, yeah.
Spoilers. We can do
it. The two soldiers shooting.
Yes.
Part when they pull up and the gunshot hits like right at the bar of the seat. I was like, oh geez.
Yep. Ugh. Oh my God.
You got me, Civil War. Congrats. Yep. I don't jump all the time, but you got me.
That was really intense. That whole sequence was really just I love how it it is this tense war scene, like it's almost like an obligatory sniper scene in a war movie. But then it's over and it's just done, and they go about their way and everything. But just the information they get, or the detail they get as to the psyche of the soldiers, and as they're talking to them, and how that is kind of reflective of the whole conflict, is really just something that just really kind of grabbed me a bit.
Yeah, it's sort of like a precursor to the finale, if you think about it. But with like, no, there's only one shooter. This is practice. There's one shooter going this way, and you got the soldiers protecting you, and you go crossing around. And then like the finale is like a lot of hallways and shooting.
Oh my God, yeah.
But yeah, so that kind of plays as like a little precursor to that. In a way, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And some other big kind of set pieces along the way, like the Jesse Plemons thing was intense. That's the most we get of kind of like the ground level conflict. It's an interesting contrast to the to the shop people that were kind of neutral. I did also, just as someone who does anthology, I really appreciated the Twilight Zone reference in that scene.
Oh,
I was like, yeah, nice. But just it was overall, the movie's intense. The movie is very intense and had me very much it had me unsettled throughout it. And I think that's probably the biggest contributor to me doing 4.5 out of 5 stars. Just the sense of unease I felt.
Oh yeah, and it's very vignette focused. Where it's like we stop here, we do this. What's going to happen here? At some point, we're going to lose one of these 4 people. Yeah, like they're not all making it toward the end. Right. I did feel weird about the Jesse Plemons moment. It's one of my weaker points of the movie. Oh, interesting. Okay. Like getting there, because when they get there, they've got this moment where there's a car following them, and it's like, oh, what's this going to be? Ends up being like, hey, look. You haven't seen us before, but we know everybody.
Yeah, we're friends, but we know each other. Yeah.
And we do this jumping through the car, and then she jumps through the car, which I guess can be like youth finally having some fun on this trip. But
yes.
And then they take them there, and they were just added because we're not ready to kill any of them yet. So we gotta put some fodder there to ramp up the stakes here. Like, yeah. Because I thought, I was like, oh, they killed the one guy. I'm like, oh, and I was like, oh, they were literally brought in for this scene.
Right. They were brought just to be killed. Yeah.
Still a good scene.
Oh, 100%.
Still a good scene. It's just the way they got there. I mean, this is a really tight movie, so I don't need, but like, was that guy at the beginning at all? Like, I remember him talking to somebody when they went to the suicide bombing at the beginning. He gets out, he sees somebody.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe add them to the hotel before they leave or something.
I remember them saying that, like, oh, yeah, I talked to, like, I found out that you guys were going to DC because he was hitting on her, and I assume that's at the bar or at the hotel. Yeah. And I'm just like, well, did we see him there? Like, I can't remember if we did or not, but I don't think there was a scene where they interacted with each other there. It could have been at the protest or at the suicide bombing. But yeah, I do like it did expose a little bit of just the skeletons of the movie. That's like, yes, we need to have these new characters come up specifically to get them killed off because we have this tense scene and we're not going to kill off these guys yet. And then with the way that Sammy gets shot, I also felt like it was effective. But it was also like, this is every war movie. Like this. Well,
yeah. When he drove off and they were shooting, I'm like, all right, he's getting a bullet.
Yeah.
They're gonna be like, oh, when did you get shot? Or something, you know, like it was gonna be one of those. But I will say, because I was distracted by the Plemons scene and those 2 guys and being like, oh, they brought him to kill. I forgot about him, and when he showed up with the van and hit him, I was like, "Oh,
yeah,
yes!"
I cheered. That was amazing. Oh yeah, 100%. I thought for sure that that Joel was going to get killed or something in that moment. I really liked the whole like Jesse being like falling into the mass grave.
Oh, that was cool. Yeah,
very interesting. Yeah, and then like as they're going to the like military base or whatever it is, after Sammy's been shot, when they're going there, we get this like really beautiful, like surreal, like burning forest, like the embers all over the place. It looks like a dream sequence. And I'm like, damn it, Alex Garland, you're great. I love you.
I like his eye. I mean, his movie, he tends to do a lot of like, upfront focus and then a lot of depth, but blurriness behind which I tend to enjoy from his movies. He's got a talent at it. It's not just like someone hit portrait mode on something like some movies do, but he's got a real eye for it. And I really like what his look like. And this, it just has a distinct look to it, which is, I think, I mean, he shot this digitally, I'm guessing. So this is really good. A good summation of what you can do with good digital photography. But yeah, I got that image, and then just like some of the end sequence like felt really like real in a way.
Yeah,
like, I felt like I was watching when they did the faux limo getaway thing. I felt like I was watching like Firsthand or like Princess Diana's limo chase at some point. Like I felt like I was watching that kind of thing happen, and this whole thing. So like, I accidentally saw one time when it happened, like they leaked to the internet. There was a video of like Saddam Hussein's like execution that got on the internet, and like I wound up clicking something. I was like, "What?" I saw it, and like it kind of had vibes in here when they were going to attack the president of like just the takeover.
Yeah.
So I was like, "Oh my gosh, this reminds me sort of a little of that." Yeah, going from the outside and slowly getting up the yard and getting in the White House and stuff, and it was really tense, brutal, because you're like, oh my gosh. I do like a nice touch that this ends going through the press room.
Yes,
sort of
the
things that they did, but it was ruthless, and I'm like, I don't know how I feel about it, but
interesting.
It just it kind of makes you feel like, wait, it's like capture, kill. No, just kill.
Yeah.
Like and they couldn't take the woman. They just had to like shoot her.
Yeah, that was
that
was intense. Yeah,
not messing around.
No,
getting what you want. But like, the way they were staging those and using that throughout the film, like, hey, let's just stop the action for a still photograph.
Yes,
which isn't new or anything, but used in a nice way here, which shows you like, oh, it's the war images come from random places that. In the added context. And in the added element of it being,
here, like us, like United States stuff like that. That's like Sammy getting shot is kind of a cliche of like this type of movie. And I can kind of like give a little bit of grief with that, but like having like actual like photographs and like showing it through that perspective throughout the movie is really interesting because like, these are Americans fighting Americans in America. And like, I'm an American and I'm like, oh, okay, this is crazy. But like the scale of it, that final assault, like that was just, I mean, it was incredible. It was incredible to watch. It was intense. And like, it made me think throughout the entire time, like, I don't know how like war journalists can do that. I don't know how anyone can do that.
I value my life and I wouldn't want to be anywhere near that. Anywhere near that. And the one thing that was just like weird, like I felt icky about kind of was the her photographing Lee as she was shot, because I would have been neater if she fell and her camera was going off and caught it rather than, here we go. It kind of, I was like,
I don't know what statement that's making or what that's gonna like. I agree, and like there's a bunch of different like interpretations of it or elements to it. Like, okay, she's like Lee is like, okay, Jesse is naive and she's trying. Like, I don't think it adequately set up that she's trying to get like a magic shot or anything. Like, she's not. Like, I don't think she's trying to do that, but like she puts herself in harm's way for whatever reason. And then Lee, like, going out of her way to protect her and then getting killed in the process and then her taking the picture. Like, I liked that only because of like the Jesse of it all, in terms of this is a woman who has just, like, her actions have directly resulted in the death of her hero, and she is getting the, like, money shot of her hero's death.
Yeah.
It's like there's some weird layers to that I don't know if I've gotten deep enough with in my analysis of it in my brain, but I think that it's something that's will stick with me for a little bit. I think the imagery of it, at least.
Yeah, I almost want it to have been like she didn't know she captured that, and then she's working on her development and scrolling and seeing that she got that.
That
like,
would have been good. Yeah,
because I just it's really where maybe that's just she's like just doesn't give a shit now. She's just death is nothing to her. But because then they have, I mean, or you could have used instead of the soldiers like haha at the end with the developed film during the credits, you could have had it be her death.
Yeah,
and we didn't see that photo get taken, but then it shows that it was taken through the credits worth of developing. I don't know. I guess at this time I saw this movie yesterday as yesterday as in the day before we recorded this. So I'm still kind of processing things about the movie, which is good. I liked it. So maybe I figure out in my head or come to a realization of what maybe I think they're going for there or something like that, or
you're still developing the negatives of it.
Yes, there we go. Yeah, put it in the terms of the movie. Yes,
exactly. That's another thing also with Lee's death. I kind of feel like Kirsten Dunst does a fantastic job in this movie. Like, her performance is really good, especially in that final assault where, like, you see, it's like wordless. You just see how much everything has weighed on her, how much everything has changed her, how she is, like, in this state of not a catatonic state, but she's not mentally present in this moment. And it's because it's like everything that's happened and everything that's going on, like the big implications of everything. Like, it's a big deal. It's finally weighing on her, and then she dies, and then 3 minutes later the movie's over. Like, I kind of wanted a little bit more, like, resolution to that. Maybe another scene with Jesse kind of processing that. I don't know, but I will say, what a freaking killer of a final line. Like, the movie ends with the president, like, the whole movie, Joel has been like, I'm gonna interview the president. This is the moment. Like, this is the moment. And then they go in there. Everyone knows that they're going to kill him immediately. He's like, no, I need to get a quote. And just like, it's just so, it's fucking delicious. It's fucking delicious. He's just like, don't let them kill me. And then he's like, that'll do. And then boom. It's just like, oh my God, that's so good. Like, even though we don't get much in terms of the backstory of the president or anything, the president is in this movie he is a composite of any fascist state, any dictator, any authoritarian, like, all over the world. And, like, to have that moment play out like that is just so satisfying, because it exposes, like, the core of, like, this type of personality, I guess. Evil.
It's good. We meet him right at the beginning as he's rehearsing how he's going to courageously say some stuff that's not true.
Right.
And then we hear him through radio broadcasts, I think once or twice.
Yep.
And he's this ominous creature. And it's so better to have him be so distant. Like, we know what he looks like. We've seen him a couple. It's Nick Offerman.
Yep.
And you're like, well, what's it going to be like when we finally get to him? What's it going to be? And, are we going to finally get to him? And I like that buildup rather than cutbacks to the president, or, you hear about hearing things with the president. And it's that Wizard of Oz thing. Like, that's what it kind of is. And that always works better, I think, in the buildup, because he's not important. What's important is the people we have here that we're following and learning about their journalistic integrity and learning about sort of like the wartime and a fascist regime of, like, seceding an entire country that has stood as united for so long. So, like, I like the ominous creature behind the curtain, and we keep going deeper layers and layers. Like, you had the fake out with the limousine, and before people getting out, like, don't shoot. It's just it's
immediate.
Like, hey, you're gonna have to go out there and just be a decoy and die.
Yeah.
Like, well, those people probably knew they were probably going to die.
Oh, yeah. Oh yeah.
And it's like it's just nuts.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Think of that type of desperation. And why wasn't the president surprised he was even in the White. Like I knew that when the limo came, you're like, he's not in the limo.
No, yeah,
he's in the White House. But it's crazy that he was at the White House for that length of time, or wasn't in an underground tunnel, or something.
Like the bunker of the White House would have been a good place to be, I would think.
Not in a room with windows, So it shows how panicked and idiotic or overconfident that type of fascist leader can be.
Yeah.
And trusting in their Secret Service people and the army turning on, it's already gone, but thinking that he probably was assuming he'd be captured and not killed.
Yeah. Yep. I think so too. That's just the hubris of it all. I think. The one thing that did bother me though, and you talked about the opening scene with him rehearsing it and it being a lie. Like that took me out of it because I can't imagine like a politician lying about anything to anyone. So that was a little weird. I'm joking.
I was like, this is a joke. It's truth all the time.
I believe everything that everyone tells me all the time. But no, I think that just the fact that we get so little detail about him, but we get enough detail and enough information about everything just through the context clues and through the dialogue here and there is really good. Also, the fact that he's not President Smith. He's just president. He doesn't have a name. He's a nameless entity. It's just, I think that's the people. I don't know. I've seen people say that, it's a little bit direct or it's a little bit surface level, but I think that there's a level of subtlety that people aren't really giving the movie the credit that it deserves for that. It's not a very subtle movie, but I think there's some subtlety to the storytelling that works really well for what he's presumably going for in this movie.
Yeah, and kudos for putting Nick Offerman there because that's a recognizable actor and not in a role you would recognize them as being maybe ever up for.
Right.
So when you see them briefly, it's in your mind. Yeah. And that's it for the rest of the movie. I think you said shades, and I think that's appropriate with this movie. I think why it's been promoted as apolitical. And you and I talk about confusion about what sides do what or where, and I think it's because there are painted strokes of things, but there's never a full bucket of paint lying around, and that's what's driving some people crazy. Well, of course it's this. Of course, I'm like, but if I'm not the other side to view it in a certain way, but I'm sure people see shades of other things. I feel like this movie has an opportunity that someone could see something else in it, but they're obviously going to recognize some of the finer points that are a bit more overt. But I had these guys sitting a couple seats down from my wife and I, and it was I could tell by the way they're dressed they might be thinking, and they kept pointing at screens during a lot of the military action.
Oh, okay.
And they're talking enough to each other well, I would have done that, or so. I'm like, oh boy, I don't think you understand what this is about. But I was I was curious. Boy. I'm like, I wonder what those guys are viewing this movie as. And the cast of characters in my screening when I went to sit, I was like, okay, this movie's got an appeal to a wide variety of people right now. So yeah, and I feel like I have a feeling the certain sect of people want to see it because they think they're going to be painted in some awful light, so they might be going to see it just to be or something, to have an opinion or to be angry about it.
100%.
Don't think there's a ton there to make them super angry. I feel like it. That's where I'm saying it doesn't punch hard enough. At the point it might be trying to make, but I don't know. That's just kind of my thing.
Yeah, well, that's why I say that it's something that feels yes, it's not punching hard enough at those particular caricatures of our culture, I would say.
Yeah.
But it's also like the kind of the way that it paints the president as a fascist, as and gives that context, just says all they say in the movie is that he abolished the FBI and I think the CIA, and did his own, like he decided to go for a third term and became installed himself as a dictator. And it's like, yeah, like that is what a fascist regime would do. That's what would happen.
The tweets of a certain president,
exactly.
You might find those phrases.
If you turned on the TV on January 6, 2021,
But those are also the funny thing is though. So if you go onto if you wander on over to the Newsmax, the Fox News sites, these are things that they project onto your Joe Biden's and your Barack Obama. Remember, Barack Obama's going to find a way to get up there too. You mean
Barack Hussein Obama?
Obama? No, he never said that. But these are the things that those outlets projected onto these people, and they say they're the fascists. So they could go in this movie and possibly oh yeah. But those are merely projections. There's not literally those guys or anyone around them saying those things. Those are projections to rile up their base and hopefully stay. So and sell my pillows. But
yes,
that's the thing. So they see those things. They don't get we're literally going off of what a guy said, like I said, and going, yeah, that can be represented. But in their light, those are the projections their news media is putting on these people, and their politicians also say those things about these people as well. They're never said by these people, but that's maybe where they could go in and go, I see that guy as that, instead of where you and I see one another. So that maybe is where there's a balance, but
that is such an eloquent way to say what I think I kind of said a little bit in my Letterboxd review, but I said it in a different way. On Letterboxd, I said, at the end of it, I said, what's funny is that the brain dead Fox News and MAGA dipshits will see it as an attack on their guy without realizing the similarities to him are just the benchmarks of authoritarianism and not direct criticisms of any one particular person in American politics. So well said on your part.
Okay.
Yeah, very eloquently said. Yeah, I think that there's a lot to this movie that I feel like people expecting something more out of it. I can understand the disappointment, but I got a lot out of it.
Yeah, I got plenty. It's entertaining. At its core, it's a unique, entertaining piece of entertainment. And I want people to go out and see stuff like this. So I definitely will say, it's worth your time. It's not only thrilling, but it'll make you think. It's nice something to take with you after the movie and debate, and go have yourself a coffee or something with somebody, or maybe a bourbon or whatever you choose to do, and have a chat what's going on about the movie, beyond, well, that was nice, or that was good, or isn't she pretty, or something like that. You can actually talk about some core thematics and things like that.
I think it's coming back. Okay, yeah, okay.
So no, there's beyond, there's the people that I live right now, watch the news, I don't need to relive that. I'm like, go see that. Maybe it will.
Yeah, maybe it'll make you think of something.
Maybe you let it play out, let it do stuff. I don't understand that mentality of I'm if I'm down, sometimes when I'm down, I'll watch a down movie. It works. Sure. It's helpful. It's but people just treat stuff like we just need bubble gum and all this stuff all the time. It's have some steak. Or if you're a vegan, a fancy vegan meal,
exactly. Yeah. Eggplant. Fancy eggplant.
Fancy eggplant.
Yeah. Yeah, that just tangent. I shouldn't even really bring this up or anything, but like I did get like we were talking before the show, like experiences on like YouTube and TikTok and stuff. Like I posted my Godzilla X Kong review, like clips of it from a previous episode of the podcast, on YouTube, and like someone commented when like what the clip that I had posted was like me saying that like I feel like the scale of Kong, it was not like up to par. Like I couldn't get a sense of like how gigantic the creatures in Hollow Earth were versus when they were in regular Earth or whatever. And that kind of took me out of the movie. In my opinion, valid criticism. And like someone on YouTube was like, stop. This is a movie strictly for entertainment purposes. You need to go outside. And I was like, it's in theaters. I went outside to go see the movie, first of all. Also,
I was inside for at least 3 minutes.
Yeah, for at least 3 minutes. Yeah. Plus the 7 or 8 minutes in my car. That's kind of outside. Yeah. But I was just tickled that it was like, it's a valid criticism, and I got told to basically touch grass.
That's a weird one to say that too. Like, that's just like, I was just kind of a little confused how big. I mean, the whole place takes place in a fictional zone. Right. I mean, and yeah, I get that. Like, that was not a concern of mine with the movie, but if that's yours, that's a-okay. Like, but yeah, that's a movie that, was trying to make it big. They lowered the budget on that, and you can 4 human characters, and it takes place all in the Hollow Earth. I get it; it's fine.
And for the most part, I thought it was fine.
It's a big dumb fun movie.
Yeah, like, exactly.
I like those. It delivered. It was Kong, Godzilla, and fight. Yeah. Like I was like, there you go.
We got Kong, we got Godzilla, we got X, we got a new empire. Yeah, we're good.
my biggest gripe with that movie, well, honestly, is the part where they're all gearing up to drive to the Hollow Earth for the first time. And they're playing Twilight Zone. I was like, oh, when they get in there, they're gonna kick it into and no, it would stop the song, and it was like all that, and then like a little bit, you got the chorus from a distance, a little bit, and I was like, dude, you were supposed to punch it
right
on that chorus. You were supposed to hit hard. I was like, yeah, we're gonna, and then I got robbed of that. I was like, bad, don't tease me like that. But that was like serious. There were no hit tunes here. There's like some country song played here. I'm not a country expert.
Me neither.
I know a poor researcher because I didn't look that up before.
I didn't either. Welcome to the obsessive viewer.
It's not the obsessive country viewer.
Exactly.
The obsessive country listener. That's what
yes.
So no. But no. Like it's gonna be a weird one with people's thoughts on it, and if they listen to this episode and hate me because of things I said. I'm trying to be balanced here, but like this is what I see in the world, and the perspective I have from the places I've been and the places I go and what I do, and but like I think this movie is something to see, and
absolutely.
It is like I think there's a real hunger now for stuff, like should be a hunger for stuff like this, and it's building, and I don't know what else to say.
Social commentary, things that will make you kind of, if not reposition your view on things, like it'll at least give you an interesting perspective.
Yeah, adults used to want these movies.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Also, I'm kicking myself because last week on the podcast, I did my secondary review was for Girl State, a great documentary on Apple TV Plus. But I was like, damn, I should have used that for this episode because Girl State is about teenage girls doing like a mock government thing and over a week period. Really great documentary. But anyway, but we're doing Late Night with the Devil, which is great also. Like it's good to have two.
That's a very good movie.
Yeah, two very good movies to review this week on the show. So
I mean, you got the president in this, and then the devil.
Exactly. Yeah. So, Brandon, as we kind of wind down, any other thoughts and spoilers you want to talk about with Civil War or anything else?
No, pretty good. Go check it out. It's definitely worth your time. See it. I think it's theater worthy. I mean, like it's big. It's got a nice scale to it. Plays well on the big screen. I was stunned. off subject, but like
sure,
the Kevin Costner movie, The Horizon.
Yeah,
that trailer. I only watched it on my phone, the trailer when it came out, but I saw on the big screen that played like gangbusters for me. Way better than watching on my. I was like, oh, okay, this looks a lot better on the big screen than on my phone. Like I was like, okay,
I don't think I've actually seen that trailer yet. Now that I think about it, yeah,
I don't know. Well, we went with Civil War, so I guess like, well, in the Old West they had one. So
yeah,
we'll throw it here. But yeah,
there we
I
go.
was like, that one played. I was like, okay, this is why you see things on the big screen.
Yeah, I had that experience with Twisters, the trailer for Twisters.
Okay.
I was like, when the Super Bowl ad came out, and I watched it on my phone. I was like, I mean, I love the first Twister. Like that was a formative movie growing up. But like seeing the sequel trailer, or the reboot, whatever you want to call it, on my phone, I was like, okay. But then in the theater, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm all for it. Yeah, let's do this. So,
well, do you ever? Sorry to keep taking you on side quests here.
Oh no, you're fine. Again, welcome to the obsessive viewer. You're fitting in nicely.
Do you ever So I'll get like the new trailer pops up, and I'm like, I know I'm going to the movies on the weekend, and I'm like, you know what? That one's I'm saving for my first view, hopefully. And then sometimes I'll go expecting to get that trailer, and I don't get it. And I'm like, darn! But nice. Was it the Furiosa trailer? I'm like, nope, wait for the weekend. I'm gonna watch it on the big screen.
Yes.
And so I wait for that, and then there'll be ones where I'm like, nope, I'm going to the movies this weekend. I'm usually my phrase is I'm going to the movies this weekend, but I usually see a movie or two on the weekend, but I will save ones because I'm like, I don't want my first one to be on the phone unless it's something like I just like gotta see it, like I'm gonna not be able to avoid. But that the Costa, that's what happens. Like I was like, okay, I'll watch it on my phone. I'm like, I'll go see it, and then like I see it on the big screen. I'm like, oh wow, this is epic.
Oh yeah, and yeah, I had an interesting experience too. And then this can be kind of the end because I don't want to take up too much more of your night. But like,
you're fine.
But like, as the listener knows, I'm a big proponent of AMC A-List. I have A-List. It's freaking great. So like what I have found is that with A-List, you get 3 tickets a week for a flat rate, whatever, any format. So like what I've found myself doing is I've gravitated more toward the Dolby screenings. I just think that like the sound is great and it looks good. It looks really good. But Civil War was the first time in a while that I did the digital IMAX, the LIMAX screening.
Bomac, yeah.
Yeah. And like, not only are the recliners a lot better because they're just there's more leg room because the Dolby theater in that theater just has like very little, like you're touching the railing. But like it looks good, it's big, it's huge, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna see more IMAX movies here because why have I not done that?
I stopped going to the AMC. You're talking about the AMC in Castleton?
Yep, Castleton.
Yeah. I stopped going to that one.
You stopped going there because this one guy and this girl were there like a couple of years ago. And it was really creepy.
No, I was still time to time, but like there's a period where there was like a bunch of shootings at that mall. And my wife was like, "Can you stop taking the kids?" So I am a proponent of that A-List and stuff. That Dolby theater is nice, but I will say I went and saw The Abyss there when it was released.
Oh yeah,
and like I was like, man, someone's not keeping maintenance on these chairs and stuff.
Oh my god,
lately.
no,
so,
yeah, they're so worn down. It's so weird. It like. It's like the cover is like I've noticed that. Yeah, that's one big downside.
But the A-List program is really good and it pays for itself quickly.
Yep.
If you go to movies regularly. And then but yeah, like I've been going to the Imagine up in Noblesville and I sing it praises all the time.
Nice.
The one thing I like about them is all their screens are 235 like it should be. So the big movies look big. They're not cropped down to fit on a 185 screen. And the seats have seat warmers and very comfortable. They have a big auditorium for the main screen and all the other screens are pretty good. It's very clean and the employees feel like they actually like working there. That's one of the things too. And they have a rewards program that's
sweet,
quite good too. It's not as good. So the thing I don't like about it is like you get free movie tickets. but you can't use them until the movie's been out for 2 weeks.
Oh.
So I go right away a lot of the time, and then sometimes when I get to that, I'm like, okay, I'll wait, and then like the showings are like 2:30 on a Tuesday.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Or well, not like that would be like the showing is like one screening at one time at like 2:30 a day if the movie doesn't do well. So I'm like, so I guess not gonna go. I did have to go see something at the Glendale Theater.
Oh my God!
A couple weeks ago. And I'm not going to sing that one praises.
No,
I believe the toilet that was broken the last time I was there is still broken, and the last time I was there was probably pre-pandemic.
Oh wow, yeah, that tracks. That I've been there for a few press screenings here and there, and like every time I've gone there, it's been just like the sound is terrible. Like it's just projection is really really bad too. I got
invited to an early screening of the Batman there, and I turned it down. And they're like, "It's free." I'm like, "I want to enjoy this if I can." And I'm not gonna go to that theater that has the state-of-the-art stadium seating from 2003 and the projections iffy. It's a smaller screen and the sound. Maybe it's 5.1. I'm not sure, but I'm like, I want to enjoy the movie. I like to give movies their best chance.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's the thing. So I wish it was nicer because it's close to my house. But yeah. So that's us ragging on the
local theater places. Yeah.
I will say though, in defense, it's a landmark one. Your Keystone Arts Mall one's nice.
Oh
I like
yeah.
that.
I love
Feels
Keystone
like I'm
Art.
going to a rich guy's house to watch a movie when I get in the screening room. Very lovely. I love your choice of movies, and I always talk about we get the international movies like limited release movies there, and then they'll play like Godzilla X Kong. You know they need money too.
Oh
so,
yeah, they do.
So I get it.
Like I need to go there more often because I'm so spoiled on the subscription model with A-List. So it's like if I go see a movie, it's like okay, well. You know, I'm going to go there instead of Keystone Art, which is ridiculous because Keystone Art is like right there. Like I'm pointing it's right next to me. And like they do such a great job of programming. Like I think they still do this, but like every Tuesday, it's like the retro rewind where
they're doing a 70s this year. I was like, I had a note to myself because they were showing Dirty Harry, and I've never seen Dirty Harry on the big screen. I'd love to see it 35 mil, but you know, beggars can't be choosers. And I was like, oh, cool. And then week later, I was like, or the week after, I was like, oh yeah, I was gonna go see Dirty. It's already aired. They already played.
Yeah. Ugh, it's rough, but
the Imagine does flashback cinema too, and they have they have some really good. I've gotten a couple of those and actually good projection on some of those. I saw like Escape from New York there and Terminator 2. So yeah, they do good stuff.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, speaking of doing good stuff, Brandon. As we wind down, do you want to tell people where they can find the Brandon Peters Show and where they can find you on socials?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Brandon Peters Show, you can go to brandonpetershow.com or anywhere podcasts are found except for SoundCloud. I have a YouTube channel as well, which is youtube.com/Brandon Peters Show, or just look up Brandon Peters Show on there. There's a football player with the same name as me that drives me nuts. So look for my mug, not his. And then on socials, I'm at Brandon 4K UHD, like a television set. Everywhere you go, and Letterboxd. Follow me on Letterboxd. We talked about that. I'm trying it out this year after many years of being about it, but I'm doing it now, and it's not bad.
Nice.
I always remember log my movies and check it out what I'm watching. I watch Matt watches a lot. I watch a lot too. So it's probably an unhealthy amount of movies already to this point of 2024. So that's there. And then also anything PopCon, you can look at popcon.us.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for joining me for this review of Civil War. We're going to bid adieu to you and then go on to our secondary review here in just a moment. But once again, thank you so much, Brandon, for joining me. And yeah, we'll have to do this again soon at some point. Yeah.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, before we get to our secondary review, I want to take a quick moment to remind you that if you like the show, please take a moment to follow us on social media and subscribe to and rate the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe to the Obsessive Viewer Podcasts YouTube channel as well, where I'm posting more and more videos and live streams of the podcasts, which I am live streaming. We are live streaming this section of the podcast way back in April 8th on Eclipse Day. And here's something new. If you are interested in starting a podcast of your own, you can go to Libsyn.com, which is where we host all of the podcasts, and use promo code OBSESS when you sign up for a new account. You'll get up to 2 months free depending on when you sign up, and we'll get a nice kickback on a commission on that as well. So more details on that are in the show notes. And now back to the show.
They tell me I view obsessively.
All right, and here we go. Secondary review of Obsessive Viewer, episode 424. I am joined by Mr. Michael White. Mike, how are you doing? Yes, it is. Yeah. How are you doing, man? How's it going?
I'm great. I'm really good. Excited to be on. You know, it's always every time I kind of come back after a long break, I'm like, all right, I want to do this more often, and then one thing or another keeps that from happening. But I'm trying to look at this as kind of just another movie review. This is not a triumphant return, because I never went away.
Yes, exactly. You're always here in our hearts.
I'm always here, and I'm excited to talk about a movie that I think we both liked pretty
yes.
well.
I should say you're always here in our hearts and in the theme song. So
that's true. Yeah. That's a good point.
Which, speaking of, do you want to give a quick plug for As Good As It Gets?
Yeah. So if you liked the theme music, or if you like the theme music to this show, I wrote it. That's me singing. And my partner, Dustin, we are a band called As Good As It Gets. And you can find us all over the internet. Spotify is probably the best place, but Apple Music, iTunes, Amazon, Google, everywhere you listen to music. And we just recently in March put out a song called Stay, Be Honest. It's just a kind of a standalone single. And then hopefully in May, we're going to be putting out another single. So yeah.
Excellent. I can't wait. And thank you so much for not only writing the theme song, but for just joining me tonight, Mike.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yes. So for the secondary review this week, we are reviewing Late Night with the Devil, which just is wrapping up its theatrical run. It is going to be premiering on Shudder on April 19th, which is tomorrow, if you're listening to this day of release, on April 18th. Of course, we're going to do a non-spoiler and spoiler review for the movie. It is a horror film, obviously, being on Shudder. The premise, according to IMDb, is a live television broadcast in 1977 goes horribly wrong, unleashing evil into the nation's living rooms. Writers and directors were Cameron Cairns and Colin Cairns. The cast includes David Dastmalchian, Laura Gordon, Ian Bliss, Faisal Bazai, Ingrid Torelli, and Reese Auteri. So this is a movie that I was very much looking forward to, and for mostly because David Dastmalchian. This is a guy who has been a mainstay character actor in so many things. And I had this overwhelming feeling while watching this movie that I was just like kind of jumping around in my seat with excitement that he was leading a movie. Like, I don't know what it was. It was just, I was so pleased to see him just as the lead in a movie. So it was exciting. But
hey, let me check my obnoxious basic white guy in his late 30s. But kind of quick quiz you. What's the first movie you remember seeing him? Like, when did you begin to recognize him?
The Dark Knight.
It's The Dark Knight, right?
100% The Dark Knight. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh yeah.
And until I think that this movie was announced, and you know, a lot of the trades that I read, I think I read about it first in Fangoria magazine, kind of really celebrated Dastmalchian, and I was kind of like, it's interesting that they're celebrating like this guy has been around, because to me it's like, oh, that kind of creepy guy in The Dark Knight that I've seen a few times.
Yeah.
But every time I see him, I just go the creepy guy the sniper or whatever, not the sniper,
but sort of,
shooter,
the shooter
in the Dark Knight. And what else? Tell me what else has us so excited about him.
So one thing that I saw in a movie that is completely
outside of this movie, by the way, for what it's worth, he's great in the movie. Kind of leading up to. But go ahead.
Absolutely. So there is like in a movie that isn't by any accounts great or good or anything, but The Boogeyman, Stephen King adaptation. I reviewed it on Tower Junkies. He is a character who makes a one scene appearance, and it is yes, and like that character,
former patient of
yes,
mm-hmm.
And like just like I think that might be. Like I've seen him in several other things, like the Suicide Squad, obviously. But seeing him in that last year was just like, I think it was a combination of him being like the one character in the movie that had any connection to the short story.
Gotcha. Yeah. I found that movie incredibly forgettable.
Oh my God. Yeah. 100%. But like he just elevated it from that. And obviously he's like comic relief in the Ant-Man movies.
Right. I mean, I guess I was excited to, because he's kind of this normal guy who's in every movie as a creepy weirdo.
Yes.
I don't know. I think I like that juxtaposition. Anytime I've seen him and give an interview or anything like that, it's like, oh, that's just a normal guy. So I was kind of looking forward to seeing, like, I guess we could debate that as we go, but like, leading man, like obviously he's drawing on Johnny Carson. Kind of thing. So to really see super charismatic leading man, I kind of didn't see it going into the movie. So that was a fun surprise to see how that was to be accomplished. But I did hear all the excitement for sure.
Yes. So as a starring vehicle for him, it's pretty exciting, being someone who's followed his career, at least in like not even followed his career, but just followed his career because he's in everything. So that was exciting.
Do we want to start, and you can cut this if you don't want to, do we want to start by kind of addressing the controversy?
We need to. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So
go ahead.
Yeah. Before we get into anything really, let's talk about the AI controversy. If you follow my TikTok, I have addressed it in a way that I was kind of hoping would take would catch fire, but it didn't. But that's fine. It's fine. But
that's TikTok for you.
Yeah. Death to Gen Z, but not kidding. Not kidding. Jesus, just kidding. Anyway. But no, so there is a controversy surrounding this movie that basically, a couple of the interstitial, images that were used in the film, were AI generated and touched up after being generated by AI. That's my understanding of it. And it caused quite a stir because Hollywood just went through 2 strikes, where AI played a very big pivotal role into why people were striking, why like the future of the world of Hollywood. And so there was controversy over this because this movie came out and there was AI generated interstitials in it. And how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I kind of want to start by just like laying out the black and white so that you and I, as we do, can kind of dance around in the gray. We actually talked about this before, pressing record. So we are on the same page. So stop me if I'm kind of talking for both of us, but we agree on this. The facts are the rise of AI is a scary thing, and there's a future where it is taking jobs from people, specifically in this case artists and creative people who make a living on being creative and working on oh gosh, what's the word I'm looking for? Working for hire. right? They're working for hire. They're art teams, and there is like a scary future where artificial intelligence kind of removes the necessity for an art team.
Yes.
Okay, so there's 3 images in this movie that are like when they cut to commercial, it displays the image on the screen, and I can see why people would be upset about those being AI, especially that this movie is released after a strike.
Yes.
Now, where I feel a little bit of friction with the people who heavily criticize the movie so much is in, well, a couple of things. This movie was made before the strike, and those images were created before the strike. Again, that doesn't absolve them from putting them in the movie. But I think before we knew the seriousness of it, everybody was kind of experimenting with what AI could do. I think in 2021, I was playing with AI apps. So I don't think, and I could be wrong, and if you're listening to this podcast and you want to comment on this, I would love to have a dialogue about it. But to me, there's a sense that the choice to use the AI images was a creative one from the filmmakers and not a cost-cutting measure.
Right. That's my big delineation about it as well, is that it's not something that was done as a measure to take in, like with any chance of taking a job away from someone.
Right.
It was done because this is a shoestring budget movie. It is a very small independent movie that they like you said, it was before the strikes. It was like created before it became such a big hot button issue. And I said on my TikTok that I can't believe I'm someone who is now saying I said in my TikTok. Yeah. For what it's worth, I also posted it as an Instagram reel and YouTube short. But anyway, I had said that it's one thing if like Disney outsourced, like took a job away from someone to do this, but when someone is making something that is presumably a labor of love, where every single penny is used to its full extent, like there's a bit more leeway that I will give to them for that.
I'll give them the leeway, and also in a world where kind of Disney rules everything, do we really want to tear down another independent movie, right?
Exactly.
With David Dastmalchian's like big starring role. This is like, that's where we're gonna put our anger. I just think like you can be angry, and it can be a thing that you're worried about, and it's worth striking about. Yeah. But I don't know that we need to cancel an independent movie.
Yeah. Wait, are you implying that people on the internet took something and then became very aggressively angry without really taking into context the full context of it?
You and I are big Letterboxd users, of course, as has been documented by this. And I don't even know that they're review bombers. Because I think they even talk about like liking the movie, but they just hate it. But the review section of this movie on Letterboxd, the top reviews now, the most popular reviews are about this, and I don't know. I'm curious to see where the intersection of angry people on the internet and horror movie fans are going to meet here, because this movie is not going to be a huge movie. It's going to be fairly niche, maybe some crossover, but limited run in theaters, and it's going to Shudder. I mean, some film buffs might hear about it. Horror people all know about it. What's the intersection there where angry internet people meet?
Yes, and Brent in the chat said Dave Dastmalchian should have hand-drawn the skeletons himself, and I agree. Like the man is very talented, clearly from all of his breadth of work. That I think he could have done it. But
before I knew what was going on, I saw those images, and I loved them. I was like, I
honestly,
need that
they do
on a
look
t-shirt
really
tomorrow.
cool. Yeah,
I need that now. I will not buy it on a t-shirt.
Sure,
I will not.
sure.
I will not buy any of those on a t-shirt. But I thought they were cool.
Yeah, they did. They did look cool, but yeah. But anyway, that's our take on the AI controversy of Late Night with the Devil. Do you want to talk about the movie?
Let's talk about the movie, because this movie is definitely worth talking about.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm going to kind of just spoil my rating a little bit here to give context to how excited I am to talk about this movie. And what I mean by that is that I have a list on Letterboxd that's every first viewing in 2024 that I rate 4 stars or higher. And this was the first, and granted, I haven't watched as many movies recently, but this was the first movie that I've rated 4 stars since I saw like one of the Zatoichi movies in the middle of March. And we're in the beginning to middle of April. And I'm like, I'm just so excited that I got to add this to that list. So
that's cool.
Yeah. So of course we're going to do a non-spoiler review before we go into a spoiler review. Yeah, this movie is fantastic. It is fantastic. It's great in terms of that 70s aesthetic and having a unique vision for the found footage with an asterisk. The way that it kind of cuts between the commercial breaks footage and the actual broadcast footage is really clever and interesting. And it makes the pacing really well. So really, really good. So I loved it. What did you think, Mike?
I'm going to come back off of that just a little bit, only because I wonder if my excitement was maybe too high for it.
Interesting.
I mean, it's set on Halloween, so of course I love that. Reading about this thing in Fangoria 2 years ago, I've been super excited about it. And a little Mike White lore, as legend has it in my family. When I was like 2 or 3, I went through a period of like refusing to go to sleep, which is not all that uncommon for 2 to 3-year-olds. But my parents kind of like didn't know how to handle it, so their solution was just to say, "There is nothing going on down here. We're going to bed. You can stay up if you want." And the joke is they put me in front of the TV and I turned on Johnny Carson, and I've never missed an episode of The Tonight Show since.
Really?
No, I mean, I stopped watching The Tonight Show in high school. But
okay, I was going to say.
I definitely, it's no exaggeration to say as a toddler, I watched Johnny Carson.
Nice. Oh my God, that's awesome.
I know, isn't that weird?
Yeah.
So I have such an admiration for like the inspiration for this movie. But I will echo all the things that you liked about it. I liked about it as well. Setting it in 1977 is interesting to me because it is about the devil and Satanism, and it hints at Satanic Panic, which really kind of took America by the stranglehold in the 80s. But 1977, The Omen would have come out in 76. So like, you get Rosemary's Baby in 68 and The Exorcist in 73. And so it's like, it's starting to build. So this would have been like early Satanic Panic, where like if you would have put this in the 80s, the network would not have let him do an exorcism on TV because of the Satanic Panic. But like you hit it before and they're allowed to do it. I love when a movie attempts to make the film stock look like it's from the 70s. And so we can talk about this if you want, but the movie is somewhat in real time for the bulk of the movie. Half of it takes place like during an episode of David Dismalshin plays late night talk show host Jack Delroy. Delroy. Excuse me. And it's a whole episode of that. And then when he's off stage, it's in black and white. Kind of looks a little more modern looking, actually.
It does. The aspect ratio changes too, I think.
It does. Yes. It's letterboxed on the show, isn't it? 4:3.
Yep.
So I love that. I love that effort. I love that attention to detail. The whole movie from front to back has that attention to detail, which I think you're forced to appreciate. All that said, like horror movies they're kind of notorious for like they're so built on their premise that horror movies are often less concerned with coming to a resolution. And this one goes from like the beginning to act 3 to the end. It's a slow, I wouldn't call it a slow burn because I was interested in everything that happened, but it was a build, and then it gets pretty wacky at the ending.
Yeah, it gets a little bit I don't want to say ambiguous, but it gets a little.
I was going to say ambiguous.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm thinking there's like maybe a word that's better suited to it. It becomes more of a
surreal.
Yeah, surreal kind of ending. And like, and I get what you're saying. Like I was invested in the build up toward that. I feel like one of the things that didn't necessarily, I wouldn't say didn't work for me with the ending, but like something that kind of gave me a little bit of pause was that everything leading up to that, all of the interstitials in between the scenes, all of the like real time late night talk show stuff, that built up such a strong sense of immersion for me that I felt so invested in it. And then when it goes into this whole like other thing, which is something that's not wholly unexpected, because obviously you expect a horror movie like this to go big at the end. Like it's building toward that. But I just feel like it fractured off into another avenue that I wasn't fully expecting.
Yes.
And yeah, and it's not even so much that I wasn't necessarily expecting it, but it was like it wasn't guiding me toward that as closely as it was with immersing me in the talk show vibe of the movie.
Right.
So like it kind of made me feel like I had to catch up a little bit.
That's so good. I wrote down when you said unexpected. And you're right. It's a horror movie. There's an exorcism and it's the devil, and it does get a little surreal. It gets a little dreamy. That was kind of where it's interesting, where the movie kind of explodes into this surrealist nightmare at the end in this kind of bigger climax. That becomes the more predictable thing, and everything else felt so unpredictable.
Yes.
Right? Everything else, you talk about the immersion of it and the 4:3 ratio. I really did feel like I wanted to search for this show on the internet. Like I wanted to watch the Night Owls with Jack Delroy, because I was so into what this was and the idea that he was fighting Johnny Carson all along for the ratings, that I'm like you. I think we're on the same page. I don't want to say disappointment, because I think the ending is what it is. And I think it's a predictable ending. I think it's the ending you kind of expect, but it became a surrealist horror movie in the last 15 minutes where I really loved the episode of television.
Right. Yes. And like, even with like going back to what I said about it being very much guiding the audience through that immersion toward it, like it even begins with a faux mockumentary, that's an oxymoron, but like like a fake documentary thing that is giving us all the backstory in such a like tightly written exposition dump that I felt so like it brought me into it. It was just so so good. What I will say about the ending, which we'll talk more about in spoilers, of course, but as much as it is kind of expected, and it is kind of that it is in line with horror movies, with the kind of horror movie this is, something I did appreciate was that it didn't go the route that I expected it to with that, because I didn't read about this movie in Fangoria. I wasn't really aware of it until like a few months ago when it kind of started, or I think when it was like at, was it at Sundance? I don't know. It was somewhere.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, okay. It was a big Sundance. Yes.
Yes. So it wasn't really on my radar until then, but I also didn't pay attention to what it was. I just saw like, oh yeah, this looks cool. from what I've seen. David Desmalchian, awesome. Let's do it. I assumed that this movie was going to just be like, oh, it's a late night host who has a guest who's possessed by the devil, and it's going to turn into an exorcism movie. It's going to turn into like the Power of Christ compels you thing.
Right.
And what I really appreciate about it was that it defied those expectations. It very much sidestepped that trope. And that's something I've talked about a lot on the podcast before. I'm just so tired and uninterested in that type of story that this was refreshing to see it not go that route.
Me too. I agree. Yeah. I think that, you know, one of the issues I have with the ending, and I do agree with you, is that it kind of drops the conceit in the last 15 minutes. It becomes, the frame story is broken.
Yeah.
Right. We're not watching the documentary anymore. And I'm towing the line here of spoiler. But I it's tough. I definitely want to see the movie again, but I watched it with a friend, and when it was over, we were kind of left with that like head scratching. Is this a Halloween classic? I don't think so. And I've said a couple times, ambiguity in endings. I'm learning to love it, but also sometimes I just prefer a resolution. Not that there isn't a resolution. I don't know why I keep harping on this ambiguity thing, because it's not. It just becomes something else at the ending. And we were kind of like, what happened there at the end?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Granted, I'm all for ambiguous endings. I really like that type of movie. I do. I'm all for it. But it has to have meaning behind it. It has to have like a conclusive end to a character story, and the way that this movie ends kind of does that, but doesn't do it as hard as it could. It doesn't really take us into Jack Delroy's whole arc. With a movie that holds us so closely as it takes us through the story, by the end of it, when we kind of have the resolution of his whole arc, it feels like now we have to catch up to what the movie is telling us. And that just feels very anachronistic with the first hour and 15 minutes that we'd seen before that, and the way that it was built up.
Before we go on to spoilers, let's go back a little bit to some of the stuff we love about it.
Yes, yes.
I do want to reiterate. So there is the Carmichael character who comes on, and he's the skeptic. That's also an homage to like the Amazing Randy. Who would come on Johnny Carson and debunk these. You know, there's a line in magicians or in like magic performers. They kind of draw a line between like illusionists and then the idea that these people can talk to, like mediums, right? Yeah. Traditional magicians are kind of anti-medium people, and so the Amazing Randy would come on, really in real life on Johnny Carson and kind of debunk what some of these guys were doing. And so that was really a pretty overt homage to the Amazing Randy. And I loved it was some of it was played for laughs, some of it was played for the scare of it, but it was all played for aesthetic, and it was all in that feeling. It just looked so perfect.
Absolutely. And the way that the way that he is kind of like the foil for everyone, really. But like, I don't know. That's what I was going to say. The way that he is also played for like this obnoxious, like he is, it dances such a fine line, because he is this obnoxious person who is just like, he's needling at everyone, and he is very much just like being kind of an ass throughout the movie. And what's so interesting is that like we, as the viewer, we're like, okay, well, the movie's doing its job, and it's doing it well because we are not actively rooting against him. We're like, we're not, it's not breaking our immersion. And I think that that's something that I feel like is a line that's towed really well in this movie, is that we have this skeptic character who is constantly biting into all of the crazy stuff that's going on. And we are kind of in a position where it's like, okay, well, maybe shut up. Like maybe, yeah,
right.
It's really good. It's really good.
It is.
And I really like just the way that the entire movie, the episode of television that they're doing in the movie is set up, because you have him, you have Christo, you have Lily and Dr. June. It's like this very, and I know that it's a movie, so they wrote it this way, but like, it's just like, I would totally watch this freaking show. Like, this is an amazing lineup.
Yes.
Yeah.
I always feel bad for kid actors in my older age, as an adult. I always feel bad for kid actors who are cast because of the way that they look. Like when a bully is cast as a bully because he looks like a bully.
Yeah.
That girl, bless her heart, was cast because she looks like she could be possessed by the devil.
Yes. And
maybe I don't want to take away from her performance either, because she really is great. But I looked at her and I'm like, oh man, that actress has the devil in her.
That's really interesting. I didn't really think of it that way. I just I think that there is a lot to her performance in her body language, and I should
give more credit to the performance. I apologize.
No, you're fine. But I do think that there's a lot of work that she's doing in terms of just sitting there staring blankly at the screen or at the camera.
Or
and smiling, or the creepy,
razor thin smile.
Yes, in the creepy way that she refers to Jack, every time, just the simple thing of her referring to him by name is just weirdly unsettling, and I can't really put my finger on it. It's just this familiarity that she has that just feels very tainted in a way that really helps make the tension really just rise up until it gets all crazy and crazy.
Yeah. So one more question before we go to spoilers.
Yes.
All of our exposition about David Dismalchian, were you satisfied?
Oh, I was super satisfied. I think he did a phenomenal job. He does this, the way that he does his character, and he has that patter, that kind of vocal work of a TV late night host down perfectly. I think he the way that he kind of wiggles through some of the more awkward situations that come up, and the way that he tries to I'm gonna make a stupid joke. The way that he tries to save the show, much like me whenever I say something stupid on the podcast, is very, very satisfying. And I do kind of wish that the ending was a little bit more
just tighter.
Yeah, tighter and built for his performance. I feel like there was stuff left out that he could have done a lot. He could have had a lot more to do in the finale.
Yeah, I so very, very rarely say this, but give me 20 more minutes of this movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
In a rare case where I'm I could do 20 more minutes, kind of flesh that stuff out a little bit.
Yeah.
I wonder, I love the real time idea of it, but I wonder if they were handcuffed by some of that.
I think so. Do you think, would you have been okay with it breaking that real time aspect, that found footage aspect, and having an extra 15-20 minutes post show where it has a more beefed up resolution to the movie and the story as a whole? Would you have been more satisfied with that?
It's hard to say. Right now, I want more, and I say yeah, but I also wonder if that would be the very thing that we would criticize.
Yeah,
that it kind of broke the boundaries of that. Just real quick about Dismalchian, I wonder who he studied. Because there's an element of Conan O'Brien, I think, to his performance, to his walk, but then there's moments. I can tell you for sure he did not study Jay Leno. I hate Jay Leno. And where he's sitting on his chair and he introduces the clip that they're about to watch, and the way he leans back and in his suit. I don't know, just his gait, his posture was extremely Johnny Carson. It almost makes me wonder if he had a particular episode or moment in mind.
That would be so interesting. I would love to see like him talk about that and see what his influence is, because I could absolutely see it being, if not 100% Johnny Carson, it like at least 90%. And I think that would really fit really well with the character, because that's obviously he's in Johnny Carson's shadow. He's someone who is working as someone who is just constantly behind.
Yeah, it's like not only is the actor, but Jack Delroy is doing Johnny Carson.
Yes, exactly. Right? Yep. Okay, should we go into spoilers for
spoiler it up.
Late Night with the Devil? Awesome, let's do it. So we are going to be going into spoilers for Late Night with the Devil. So if you haven't seen it and you want to steer clear of spoilers, please pause it and watch the movie and come back. Or if you're in the live, in the live, we have four viewers. Awesome. So, but if you're in the live stream, and you don't want to be spoiled, now's the time to leave. So we're going to go ahead and go into spoilers for Late Night with the Devil. To bring us into that, I'm going to play a clip from the trailer. When we come back, we're going to be spoiling the movie.
We all know how important it is to keep our sponsors and affiliates happy, but in my humble opinion, there is only one person who really matters in this whole darn crazy business. And that is you, our viewer.
You're meddling with things you don't understand.
Whoa! Now, as you know, here on Night Owls, we think it's very important to keep an open mind. Please welcome Dr. June Ross Mitchell and Lily, the young subject of the book, Conversations with the Devil.
Okay, so spoilers on for Late Night with the Devil. Once again, this movie is going to be streaming on Shudder on April 19th after a theatrical run. So let's go into spoilers for this movie. Mike, first, do you want to just briefly touch on, since we didn't really talk about this in non-spoilers, the different segments, like Christo's whole thing at the beginning, and then the escalation from that to the actual I don't want to say exorcism.
It's the communication with the possessee or the devil or whatever it is you want to call it.
Yeah.
So I'll even go back a step earlier if you don't mind. I'm sorry to kind of railroad where you were going with it.
Oh, no, not at all.
It's tough to talk non-spoilers, even though the exposition, the setup, the frame story of the documentary we're watching is that Jack Delroy is a suspected member of this. They're called the Grove, and we would call it a cult, but it's like this elite social society club kind of thing. So it really sets up this idea that he is well connected and kind of like this in an insidious kind of way, connected in nefarious ways, kind of like people. It's like Illuminati is the thing people like conspiracy theorists like to talk about. So they're the Late Night with the Devil is it's not just this episode. I think the movie pretty early on is asking us to wonder, like, at what cost is he trying to get these ratings, right? Like, I'll just put it in plain English. Has he made a deal with the devil? I think is the question you're asking pretty straight away.
Oh, absolutely. And like, that's the thing too. Like you said, we would call it Illuminati or Swifties, but it's a cult. But that is an overall satisfying outcome in that it basically presents this, like the reveal at the end that his wife died because he made the deal to get better ratings and to be a success. That's compelling and interesting. That's a good resolution. I just don't like that it just is thrown. It is thrown into the movie so quickly and doesn't really give us a lot of time to really breathe with that. All that
20
much.
More minutes. So the episode begins, and this is like his last ditch effort it's sweeps week.
Mm-hmm.
In October, I mean, sweeps when we were younger was November, but whatever.
November and I think February was
February. That's
week,
right. Yeah. Did that ping for you when he was like sweeps week? And I was like, well, I don't know. Maybe it was different in the 70s.
No, it really didn't. But like, kind of in retrospect, it kind of it makes me think. It makes me a little bit wistful for old time TV.
Yeah.
Like, because now,
old
like,
time TV.
Yeah, like
from
it's
the
just
1900s.
Exactly, because now that just doesn't exist anymore. It's wild to think about.
No,
that.
I listen. Forget the tangent, listeners. But I've been listening to Pod Meets World, the Boy Meets World podcast, and I just love it. And they talk a lot about like 4-quadrant television and like television for the whole so 4-quadrant is like young, old, male, female, and where to whom is your show directed. And you know, in the 1900s, a show like Boy Meets World, the idea was the whole family ate their McDonald's or pizza or whatever on Friday night, and everybody watched it, right? Parents and children alike. And now everything is so niche. There's kids TV and there's adult TV, and it's like never the twain shall meet anymore.
Yeah.
And
I
miss that. Like, there's no shows we watch together as a family.
Yeah, appointment television, like family television. Like, I can't. Like, it's I do miss it, but it's funny you bring up Pod Meets World, and this is a tangent and everything. But like,
we'll bring it back, listeners.
We will. But like,
I'm on a pitch count here.
Yes. So like, so in my head, I've been saying this over and over again in my head, because like this year, and this is why this movie kind of resonates with me a little bit. But like this year specifically, since like November, I have been making a very, very concentrated effort to put out more podcast episodes of Obsessive Viewer, to track the stats of it, to do more new, interesting things with it, like the live stream, like the TikTok stuff and everything. Like, I'm doing more to just try to like get the word out on it and everything. But the thing that I keep thinking about is like, what would I have done differently at the beginning of my podcast journey to do this?
Man.
Well,
geez.
Well, here's the thing. I think that the big pivotal mistake that I made was that in my 20s, I wasn't the star of a sitcom that I could then capitalize on and make a podcast about in my 30s and late 30s at that.
That's right.
Yeah, so that was the big failing. I wasted my 20s not being on a television show that I could, and then this is such a dig, but like, so that I could just half-ass a watch-along podcast and then get a lot of money for it. But anyway, that's not pointed to Pod Meets World, by the way. I have not listened to Pod Meets World at all. That's
fine. I love Pod Meets World.
Blanket statement at everything.
So at the beginning of the episode of Night Owls,
yes.
So the idea is this is like his Hail Mary, like his last contract with the broadcasting company, and it's his last sweeps week, and they have decided to put a real exorcism, live TV, late night. And so the first segment, you go ahead.
Oh, yes. So the first segment brings out a medium named Christo. It's also worth mentioning that this is is this his first, is this Jack Delroy's first episode back after his wife died? I can't remember because I feel like,
should know.
I feel like there was a little bit of a montage that showed like him coming back.
Yes.
So it might have been.
I don't think it is his first episode back.
Okay, I think you're right that it is like his first sweeps week. But that first one has a medium who is doing the medium things, and doing that whole like, I'm getting a Peterman thing in the audience, and like, I really like that because that is bringing us into a familiar kind of territory, familiar for us. That's like, this is.
Yep.
Easily kind of scrutinized setup. And it kind of sort of starts to endear us a little bit to Carmichael, to Ian Bliss's character, because he is willing to basically just call out the bullshit and
Did you
call
notice
attention to it.
the individuals in costume in the audience who would later reappear at the ending? I found them to be super eerie.
I found them very disturbing. The way they weren't really responding or reacting. Yeah, that was great.
Just bored stiff.
Yep.
Yeah, so I love those scenes as well. I also love when things get a little bit hairy. He kind of like drops his
accent,
his European accent.
Yes. Yeah, I thought that was such a great touch.
From Brooklyn or whatever.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is very like 1977, like debunking a medium.
Yep.
So then we get intervening scenes of black and white documentary footage of them kind of talking about how the show is going.
Mm-hmm.
The next guest is Carmichael, right? He kind of sits down. Is that a guest?
I think so. Yeah, I think he's the next one that comes out, and he comes out after that, because then we also get what I really like about the whole Christelle thing is that it is very much debunkable. Like when he's having the conversation with the two women, like in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, well they could be plants. They could be like, they could be anything. And like, I just love that, because then as the movie progresses, we get more and more just crazy, wild stuff happen that is completely out of the realm of explanation. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right. I love that. That's a build, and that's good storytelling for sure.
Yep.
So then the main event is this exorcist scientist person.
Like there was a word that they used for it.
Yeah,
but I can't
there
remember.
was. We should be better reviewers, better note takers. And then so it's this girl who has been rescued from a cult. A satanic cult, and they did rituals. So compare that to the Grove, which is this like maybe Illuminati that Jack Delroy has been noted to be associated with, and then there's this like definite like Satan worshippers, and she was rescued from this cult. So I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit, but this is more question than review. What connection is there? I think this is where I got tripped up in the ending a little bit. What connection is there between the Grove and the cult that the girl comes from?
My kind of take on that, and this is kind of just a knee-jerk take on it, but my thought is that there are different levels to evil in this world, in the world of this movie. There is the outright, just like completely visible, crazy cults of the satanic cult that's doing things, and that they're taken down by the government and everything, and they're rescuing people and stuff.
Right, that cult is raided by the FBI.
Exactly.
And broken up. Yes.
Yes. And then you have the Grove, which is a semi-public one, but very private in and of itself. So it's people have an awareness of it, but they don't know what the ins and outs of it is.
Right.
So I think that the movie is kind of demonstrating that it's like putting these two different groups up to where like people know the extent of the horror that's facing the satanic cult that Lily was rescued from, but no one knows for sure what happens at the Grove. And like that's even kind of demonstrated with when Carmichael is like, hey, I can you get me into this? I've heard some really cool stuff about some orgies and stuff. I think I'd be really good at that. But yeah, so I think
that's a great connection. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I like that that reading of it a lot. But how are they? Is it just chance? Is it just circumstance that she ended up on this show, or is it like the devil just worked his way to cash his check? that Jack Delroy wrote?
That is such a good question, because that's where I kind of fall apart a little bit in my reading of it. Like that's
me
where
too,
I get,
and that makes me feel better.
Because like during that whole segment toward the end where she noticed it, like she recognized, or the demon recognizes Jack and says like, yeah, I met you in the woods. Like, and like, I was hoping that there would be a little bit more clarity. And like the only clarity we get is at the end when you know, we see basically that like metaphysical sort of like ambiguous kind of presentation to us where like we're told directly, but it's very weird that like, yeah, he made a deal with the devil and he wanted to get ratings. The sacrifice was his wife. He didn't intend it to be her.
That feels overt to me. Right? Like that feels clear.
Yeah. And then it ends with him killing Lily, and that's it. Like it just feels like it feels like there's like a piece missing to make it more clear. Like it seems like it seems very.
Me too. For a while, I wondered if he was like trapped in this late night purgatory or this late night hell. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like in
much like the people in our chat right now.
Shout out to Moo Moo and Snitchies. What are the cats' names?
Luna and Momo.
Luna and Momo.
Yeah, which, by the way, Paige said in response to earlier, she said, as a resident Swiftie, yeah, you're not wrong. So,
yeah. You know, I'm a sometimes Swiftie. I'll say I'm a student of the Taylor Swift rise to fame. I'm definitely super interested. Yeah. I did see the Eras Tour movie in theaters. And that was a blast. Anyway, whatever. Speaking of the devil, so he made this deal with the devil with at the Grove. I think we can assume that, right? Or pretty strongly infer that his sacrificed his wife for that.
Unintentionally, because he okay, he didn't intend for her to be sacrificed. I think he
didn't know in what way the devil would cash that check.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. So then that cult, the satanic cult, was able to bring the devil or a demon back into the body of Lily. And then what? How did it work its way? That's I think that's where I have to like. This is a criticism I use a lot. Like I have to do some of the work for the movie.
Yeah,
I have to like do the movie favors to because that demon knows Jack Delroy.
As someone who has referred to himself as being on TikTok a lot. To borrow a phrase from the TikTok generation, the math ain't mathin'.
The math ain't mathin'.
Yeah. And like it is very confusing because I understand that they need to conceal that he made a deal. Like they need to conceal that from the audience.
Yeah.
To have it be that big kind of reveal at the end. But in doing that, they also kind of confuse my dumbass with it when they have like the vision of Madeline on the like right behind him when they're running back the footage, and that's when it goes like full on into just weird surreal sort of purgatory hallucinating sort of like landscape or dreamscape. And like in theory I really like that. I like the idea of that. I just wish that it was executed a lot like clearer. Me
too, and I like the surreal because the movie sets up the surreal for us in the debunking scene. So there's a scene kind of toward the tail end of Act 2 where Carmichael, the skeptic, it like hypnotizes the audience, but in a really cool way hypnotizes us, the viewers watching the movie called Late Night with the Devil.
Yes.
Right? Yes. And we see something that doesn't happen. The hypnotism works on us. So it's definitely establishing like all that we see may not be real or what we think we're seeing might be something else. And that is great. That is
100%.
Beautiful ambiguity. That's surreal to the max. And I love that.
And when it gets to that, and we get like the worm stuff, the gore of that, like this is going to be kind of just like cheeky or whatever. It's like, I don't care that they used AI for the interstitials because they put their money where it needed to go.
Yes, exactly. Practical effects.
Yeah, it looked so freaking cool.
It did. And at that point in the movie, my friend and I are like groaning and like, oh man, this movie is firing on all cylinders. This is where you wanted it to go. This is where it leads naturally.
Mm-hmm. And again, I'm so happy it led to that and not a standard exorcism sequence. I got a little bit worried when we had Lily in the chair and we had them communing with the devil or with the demon or what have you, because I was like, okay, here we go. Standard third act. Let's go for it. But it pivoted. Yeah, it pivoted. Even if I had some issues with the ending, it still was a pivot that I appreciated. Yeah.
So we're both left wondering.
Yeah. And maybe it's something that'll, we'll get better. We'll have. I'm curious how our opinions will change when we rewatch it. Yeah. Also,
do you have
She-Hulk in the chat said, I just watched it. It was awesome. So that's awesome.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
We agree. I think it's easy for us to nitpick and find the things we don't like, but it was awesome.
It's an awesome movie. It is fantastic. Yeah. So what were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to say, do you have any other thoughts? Or are you kind of ready for my last question?
I think I'm ready for the last question because obviously I don't want to take up too much of your time. Like, I'm very conscious of that.
Sure.
So hit me with your final question.
Well, the benefit of being really at the beginning, the first quarter of this century that we're living in, we can kind of do these wild swings, these big hot takes, and kind of start creating a best of the century.
Oh my God!
List. Where is this a classic? Is this a Halloween classic?
So
where do you put? Let's put this in a tier. You know how modern Gen Zers have A, B, C, D, E, F, and then S tier at the top. Is this an A tier? Is this an S tier movie post 2000 for you?
I first to talk about tiers and everything, I will say I will walk back my TikTok notice. I'm a part-time TikToker, so I don't know what the tiers are. But
maybe that's more of a YouTube.
Oh, sure.
I think that's more of a YouTube thing.
Yeah. But it's up there for me. One thing that I don't mean to drag this on any further or anything, but something that I wouldn't say that I struggled with, but something I wanted a little bit more from it was more of the Halloween vibe. Yeah. Like it is set on Halloween. There is horror stuff going on. There's costume stuff going on, but like I didn't get the sense of it being like I wouldn't say that it was a modern like Halloween themed classic. It's not Halloween. It's not Trick or Treat. It's not something that is married to the holiday, but it's something that's a little bit further in the backdrop than it is at the forefront. And I kind of wish it was a little bit more celebrating the season, but I understand that it doesn't need to. That's not the movie it was. And it's not what the character is, because the character is just trying to capitalize on Sweeps Week and everything. So, but having said that, I can see myself revisiting this a lot in future Shocktober's and in future just viewings. It is a very, very like well constructed and palatable found footage movie in a very unique found footage movie at that, in terms of its being a real time late show thing. It's breezy as hell, like with the switching between like the backstage stuff and the actual taping of it. It's really good. It's really energetic. And I think that my not necessarily qualms with the third act, but like my criticisms of it that are far outweighed dominated, I guess, by the praise that I have for the movie. With those in the third act, it takes it from being like an appointment viewing thing that I'll see like every year or what have you, unless it gets built up on repeat viewings. I don't know. That's a word salad of me saying I really like this movie. It's in contention for my top 10 this early in 2024. So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if it makes for good podcasting or bad podcasting, but I pretty much agree. I think we're lock and step with this movie. And I think we have been in talking about it and kind of leading up to the movie. So I agree with you. The frame and the setup and the aesthetic of this movie are exactly what I wanted it to be. As like a student of late night television, and especially early late night television, and Johnny Carson and The Tonight Show. The frame of it was pitch perfect, and I loved it. Every second up to the last few seconds. I think I agree with you that I don't know that the ending ruins the movie for me by any stretch of the imagination, but it does take it off that list of like all time Halloween movies, like best movie of the decade. I don't know about that. I don't know if this is good criticism or just me kind of being an obsessive fan, but it is the obsessive viewer. I wanted to love it so much, and I think I hoped for it to be S tier. I hoped set on Halloween, late night TV, Exorcism. I really hoped it would be kind of an all timer. And we will just settle for pretty darn good. Yep.
And here's the thing. First of all, no cap. But no, here's the thing. Like, nice. It is a standout horror movie that is out this year, and this year and years past, it stands out among a pack of very, very standout horror movies that we've gotten in the mainstream, in the deep cuts.
Feasting.
It's
just
amazing.
An absolute feast.
Yes. And like,
I mean, as recently as, I don't know, pick a number, 10 years ago, 15 years, when we started doing movie night, 12 years ago or 14 years ago, my God.
Jeez.
At the beginning of this podcast, even.
Yeah.
Good horror was like hard to come by.
Yeah.
You would get one good one in the season of October and just have to find other stuff. I mean, it's like you now have to choose in October which ones you're going to see.
Last week on the podcast,
Shudder is buying things from Sundance.
It's insane.
It's crazy.
It's insane. And like last week on the podcast, I reviewed for the secondary review, I reviewed Upgraded, the Amazon Prime rom-com. And I did that because like in my head, I have been reviewing so many like good, solid, and great horror movies, even bad ones. Like I'm like, as much as I love it, I'm like, as much as I love it, I don't want it to be the obsessive horror viewer. Which is funny considering what I'm planning for next week. But anyway.
Hey, maybe I'll do the offshoot of obsessive horror viewer.
Oh my God, I got
a couple of minutes if you want to do world's fastest potpourri.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yes, let's do it. Yeah. Oh yeah. And Paige said horror fans are definitely be something. It's in the way. Sorry. Anyway, rapid fire potpourri. By the way, I should mention that I'm getting really behind on my Patreon stuff with Flanagan Fridays. I promise I'm going back to it. I'm going to be doing The Haunting of Bly Manor with the anthology coming back up and everything. I haven't had time to really do that. So this week I'm going to buckle down and get back to Flanagan Fridays. But anyway, that's our review of Late Night with the Devil. Let us know what you thought of it. Thank you to those in the chat who joined us for this review. And we're going to wrap up the episode with a rapid fire potpourri section, which potpourri is the section of the podcast where we talk about things we're watching, things we've seen recently, things we're looking forward to, whatever we want, as long as it smells good. It's the potpourri section. And Mike, why don't you get us kicked off with your rapid fire potpourri for this week's Obsessive Viewer?
Sure. So my movie watching habits always come in the form of lists. Like I'll kind of put together a list of 20 to 30-ish movies that I really try to complete before I move on to the next one. Now, this is outside of like, if my wife wants to watch a movie together on the weekend, we'll just kind of pick something we like together, or movie night, I'll watch that kind of separately. Or if Matt and I are reviewing something on the podcast, I'll find a way to squeeze that in. But in my own time, I'm usually working on a list. And lately, I've been working on horror movie blind spots that I feel like I should have seen, right? Like the movies where if I'm going to call myself a true horror fan, how can I say I have never seen Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight? And so I'm trying to remedy those viewings. So I'll kind of start in March, and this is super rapid fire. Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight, 3.5 stars. I think there's a myth that there were no good horror movies before Scream came out, and like Scream saved the horror genre. That's not true. There's actually some really good early 90s horror. It's just that Scream brought it into the mainstream. So check out some of those early 90s horror, because they are out there and they are really good. Nice. I did watch Peter Jackson's Brain Dead, which is the goriest movie I've ever seen.
Oh, wow. That's saying something. Interesting.
It was insane. John Carpenter's The Fog. No disrespect to the master. Bless your heart. I love you, John Carpenter. That is a crusty, dusty old movie.
That's too bad.
The Omen, 1976. Very good. Detention from 2011. I like that. Fun, weird. I did watch Killer Clowns from Outer Space at the beginning of April. Not for me. Like, I get why there's a cult following for that. But it's just not my kind of thing. And in the last couple of nights, I watched 1935's Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah, I was so excited when I saw you saw that.
Oh, it is so good. And I love the original Frankenstein.
Of course.
And I can't believe I've never seen Bride of Frankenstein. It was always just more of an idea in my head than an actual movie. And it's so compelling. It's like you're watching it, and the whole time you're thinking, this movie was made 90 years ago.
Yes.
I mean, there's like, it begins and you're actually frightened of the monster. He's like in this kind of like sewers or this ditch or something like that. And he's kind of like swimming through the water, and it's actually creepy. And then it kind of humanizes him a little bit, and it builds this relationship where he's just, it's called Bride of Frankenstein, and it's such an interesting title for the movie because he's really just kind of looking for a friend and connection. For a 90-year-old movie, it was amazing movie. And then I just finished, I watched half of it yesterday and the other half of it this morning, Bram Stoker's Dracula from 1992, Gary Oldman, Keanu Reeves, Winona Ryder. Also very, very good. Not as good as Bride of Frankenstein, but Francis Ford Coppola from 1992. Incredible, like in-camera visual effects.
Nice.
Gary Oldman is absolutely slaying. And it's really good. Again, early 90s. Don't sleep on early 90s horror. Scream is the peak, and it definitely changed things. But don't let anybody tell you there were no good horror movies in the early 90s.
Nice.
There's some great ones out there. Pet Sematary, Nightbreed.
Oh my God, Pet Sematary. Yep.
Yeah. Great.
And really, really, really quick. Like, this doesn't have to be a big thing, but the first Omen. It was good.
Oh man, it was really good.
That is insane to me. Like, it was not really on my radar. I was gonna do a double feature with that and
me neither.
Something else on Saturday, but I didn't do the double feature. But I'm now excited to see it, and I wasn't expecting to be excited to see it. So,
and have you seen the original The Omen?
Long ago, I saw the original Omen back in a year that was 2008.
So it's a direct prequel, and there's some cool
nice
Easter eggs and kind of overt plot moments. It was pretty scary. It was
nice.
Good. We're feasting, feasting, man.
Yep. Oh yeah.
So yeah, lots of horror. Still going.
Nice. And it's funny also that you said that, like, I wanted to fill some horror blind spots, and my immediate reaction was like, you have horror blind spots, Mike? Like, that's That's unheard of.
I haven't seen them all.
Yeah. Someday you will.
Someday. Yep.
For my potpourri, I don't have much because really I've only been watching things for the podcasts and stuff that's one of the reasons why on Patreon I haven't done any like immediate reaction stuff because everything is going toward the podcasts. But I will do a First Omen one whenever I see it because I'm not planning that as a review. But anyway, I will bang the drum again, weirdly enough, for 24, my rewatch of 24.
Wow, okay. All right,
yeah.
Go for it.
I've been rewatching it, and I've talked about it on the podcast a few times here and there the last few months. It's entertaining. It is of a time, and there's a lot of just kind of silly things to it, but I recently finished season 6, which that's around the time where I kind of tapped out of it with my fandom. Like I loved this show. I adored it. And
I remember.
Yes. And then season 6 happened and it was a mixed bag. And then when season 7 started, like it was delayed a year because of the writer's strike. And by that time, I kind of just, I wasn't a devoted fan of it anymore. So I watched it up until the show ended, but I wasn't as passionate about it. But season 6, I was passionate about it. And something that I really honed in on this time rewatching it is that, like, yes, a lot of the subplots, a lot of the kind of conceit of the movie the show is kind of just not that well drawn, especially in the 6th season. But like, there's one thing that I really appreciate, and that is how it created like Jack Bauer as like the greatest like agent like person, but it's not like an action movie thing. Like he actually has a lot of pathos. And like season 6, he was brought, like he was abducted by the Chinese and in a Chinese prison for 2 years before season 6, and then the government brought him back to sacrifice himself for the terrorist plot to stop terrorist attacks and everything. But like,
I remember you trying to describe these plots to me in college and then just trying to pretend I was interested.
And
trying to be a good friend.
And I still appreciate that, Mike. I really do. Like there's a lot of pathos to Jack Bauer, especially in that 6th season, because he is dealing with like being like tortured for 2 years. And like it's interesting to me because knowing that the show is like very much like written by like a group of like Republican propaganda people throughout most of its run, it's so interesting to me to see them actually give like the lead character, the action hero character, vulnerability and pain that he has to overcome. Like there's like, and granted it is kind of depicted in like really goofy ways. Like one of the big parts in the beginning of season 6 is that like he needs to get information out of a terrorist, and like the terrorist is like, oh no, you can't do this. And then he's like, oh, he's telling the truth. And then the guy next to him gets the information from him. So like, it's like he has the vulnerability, but like it's also like the vulnerability is he can't torture a human being anymore in the first few hours of the show.
Bless his heart.
Yeah, but I'm enjoying it still. It's fun. It's fun pulp entertainment. Yeah. So yeah. But anyway,
Kiefer Sutherland, in a horror movie that is like B tier, pop culturally speaking. But should be maybe S tier Fright Night.
Oh, Fright Night! I forgot he was in that.
Please check out Fright Night if you've never seen Fright Night.
The original.
Have you seen it?
The original? Yeah, I don't think I have. I've seen the remake, but I haven't seen the original.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah. Nice.
So good. So good.
Whew. Well, we're gonna wind down this episode. Once again, to those in the chat, thank you for viewing along with us. This episode will be up on April 18th on the Obsessive Viewer. And before we go, as I very much tried to conceal a burp,
why did I say Friday night? I'm so sorry. Sorry. Let me go back. it was like I'm tired brain fart. The Lost Boys.
Oh, the Lost Boys.
Oh,
yeah.
Not Friday Night.
Well, that makes sense. Vampires.
The Lost Boys.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. Yes. I have seen the Lost Boys.
There go my horror credentials.
No.
Lord.
I was really curious if you were going to say like Mirrors or something. I think he was in a movie called Mirrors. I don't know.
Yeah, he was. I don't think I've ever seen Mirrors.
But yeah,
that's a blind spot.
Yeah, but the Lost Boys, check it out.
Lost Boys.
But Mike, before we go, can you tell people where they can find you online, Letterboxd, and your band As Good As It Gets, and where they can stalk you?
You know, it's interesting that you say that. You can't really find me online all that much anymore. You can find As Good As It Gets on Instagram, As Good As It Gets Music, and really any of the OV links. But if you have any questions for me and not the band, shoot them Matt's direction, and surely he will relay them to me. I am not a Twitter or X patron any longer, so
yeah. I've been dabbling in Threads, and it's been kind of nice. I kind of like it.
Yeah, I'm interested.
Yeah. Anywhere else I can just push my product like on people. But that'll do it for this episode of the Obsessive Viewer podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. As always, make sure to follow the show on social media and subscribe to the podcast on your preferred podcast app. Also check out Obsessive Viewer Podcast's other shows, Tower Junkies, a Stephen King podcast hosted by Tiny and myself, and Anthology, the Twilight Zone and Classic Sci-Fi podcast hosted by me. And of course, check out Patreon, patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. I'm going to go ahead and start playing us out. Next week on the show, we are reviewing Abigail and Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver. So, wow. Yeah, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, thank you once again for listening, and also check out the other shows. Thank you guys, and we'll see you next week. And now, enjoy this short clip from a recent Patreon exclusive episode. For the full episode and more Patreon exclusive content, sign up at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. It just didn't really work for me because it didn't really tie in or key into the things that I look for in a movie like this, and in particular in a science fiction movie like this, because I want to be not necessarily challenged by the movie, but I want to at least be invested in the movie. I want to be invested in the story that it's setting out, the characters that it's putting into these situations. And I just didn't get that connection here. It is pretty cool to see like the head exploding and see like, people get gunned down in certain scenes, and a bunch of stuff happen. Like it's good to see it, but if I don't have that kind of personal connection to the material or personal connection to the people that this is happening to or the world that it's happening in, then I'm gonna have kind of a bad time with it. And thank you for listening to the Obsessive Viewer podcast. This episode was produced and edited by me, Matt Hurt. If you have feedback, thoughts on our episodes, or just want to connect, you can email me at matt@obsessiveviewer.com. For more information on this show, including a full archive of our episodes and show notes, visit obsessiveviewer.com. And if you enjoyed the show, please give us a follow on social media and subscribe to us on your podcast app of choice so you never miss an episode. Also, consider rating and reviewing the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Audible to help increase our visibility and grow our community. If you want to support the show and get early access to new episodes, as well as a steady stream of exclusive episodes, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. For information on more podcasts presented by obsessiveviewer.com, visit obsessiveviewer.com/podcasts. Our theme song is A Little Mad Sometimes by As Good As It Gets. For more of their music, check them out on Spotify and at asgoodasitgetsmusic.com. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.
See this episode's show notes for our unique promo code to get up to 2 months of free podcasting service with Libsyn when you sign up for a new account. Get your show on Apple and Spotify, get helpful stats and all the support you need to sound your very best.